Good evening, everyone. Appreciate it. It's 6 o'clock, April 16th, Thursday. I'd like to call the meeting to order if we could. This is the only meeting of the year the superintendent calls to order before we organize ourselves. Before we get into it, Sunny, I just want to confirm that you can hear us and you can see us.
I'll ask her.
I can hear and see you.
All right, perfect. Are you, you're not able to be here, but, are you, alone?
I'm alone, yes.
All right, perfect. Thank you very much. So, the first step, this evening is to take a nomination for chairperson of the Souhegan Cooperative School Board for the 24-25 school year.
Nominate Stephanie Grunt.
I second.
All right, Stephanie, will you accept the nomination?
Sure.
Do we have any discussion on that nomination? All right, all those in favor?
Oh, yes.
Well, I gotta do a roll call now.
Sorry.
That's a twist. We'll do a roll call vote on this. So we'll start with you, Sunny.
I am in favor.
We'll go.
Glover, yes. Dave, yes.
Peters, yes.
Run, yes.
There you go.
Okay,
Oh, Gary did.
yeah, he did. Anna?
Glazerman, yes.
All right, we're in business. Okay,
All right, the only thing I'm gonna do before we move on, because we need to get our student representative downstairs quickly. I just want to do the chair, the vice chair and secretary, and then we'll do the community council update, and then we're gonna do the auditors. All right, I just want to make sure we get you down there in time.
Shall we get me popcorn?
So I will take nominations for vice chair.
Nominate Christie. She wants to serve again.
Do you accept the
I would love to
nomination?
do that.
Okay, any other nominations? Okay. All right, if there are no other nominations, then we will take a roll call vote. Sunny,
Daniel,
did I do a second? Yes, we need a second.
yeah, we need a second to that.
I'll second.
Sunny
Thanks,
seconds.
Sunny.
Okay, thank you for that correction. Made that mistake. So Sunny, I'll start with you, in favor of Christy Peters as vice chair.
Daniel's yes.
Mr. Glover.
Glover, yes. Dave, yes.
Peters, yes.
Grund, yes?
Dave, yes.
Glazerman, yes.
Okay.
I
And-
feel like there should be somewhere between.
And secretary, who would like to be nominations for secretary?
Nominate Anna.
Anna, do you accept?
I'll
Do
second.
I have a second? All right, second by Ms. Peters. Any other nominations for secretary? All right, then, roll call vote on Ms. Goulet Zimmerman as secretary. Sunny, I'll start with you.
Daniel's yes.
Glover, yes. Dave, yes.
Peters, yes.
Grund, yes?
Glazerman, yes.
All right, thank you. So we have those checked. We'll come back to the actual committee assignments. But let's go. I'm going to do little things out of order. If anyone objects, let me know. We're going to do the community council update so she can get downstairs. And then we're going to do the auditor, and then we'll come back and do our assignments. Is that okay with everybody? So we can get our guests not sitting around through all of that.
I got it.
Izzy, would you like to update us on community council?
Sure thing. Recently, we have had 3 proposals passed. They have all been changes to the student handbook brought forward by administration. The first one I'm going to talk about is the academic integrity proposal. The language and tone of the old policy uses a very straightforward and directive tone, listing prohibited actions and consequences, while the new policy adopts a more comprehensive and explanatory tone, emphasizing the importance of honesty and ethical behavior in academic pursuits. The old policy focuses on plagiarism, cheating, and academic dishonesty without providing a detailed explanation of academic integrity, while the new policy expands on academic integrity, covering a broader range of actions, including the use of digital tools and devices, and emphasizes proper citation and attribution. It also highlights the responsibilities of the faculty, saying that introducing specific responsibilities for faculty, such as clear expectations for facilitating discussions about academic integrity with students. There's also a range of consequences brought forward. While both policies outline consequences for violations, the new policy provides a wider range of potential consequences, including remediation options and loss of privileges. And then to determine the severity of the offense, the new policy introduces factors for assessing the severity of offenses, such as the type of violation, past conduct, and impact on the school community to ensure fair and proportional consequences. But overall, that new academic integrity policy takes a more holistic approach, providing clear guidance for students and faculty while emphasizing the importance of honesty, responsibility, and accountability in academic endeavors. The next proposal that was passed was the tobacco and nicotine policy, which all three of these were, I'm not sure if I said that, but they were changes to the student handbook. The old policy uses a more formal and directive tone, focusing on consequences and legal ramifications, while the new policy adopts a more holistic and explanatory tone, emphasizing prevention, education, and community well-being. The objectives of the policy, the new policy expands on these objectives, emphasizing prevention, education, reduction, campus wellness, and legal compliance in a more comprehensive manner. For progressive discipline, in the old policy, disciplinary actions escalate with each offense, ranging from in-school suspension to external suspension based on the number of offenses, while the new policy still includes progressive discipline, but offers a broader range of potential consequences, including confiscation of products, parental notification, police involvement, reinstitution for damages, restitution for damages, and completion of education and education activities. And then for specific consequences, the new policy specifies potential consequences such as in-school suspension, after-school suspension, or detention, depending on the severity of the offense, whereas the old policy primarily focused on suspension. The focus on education and support, the new policy emphasizes education and support for individuals found using tobacco and nicotine products, with a focus of completing education and cessation activities, whereas the old policy mainly focused on disciplinary actions. The new policy encourages community engagement and informed decision-making regarding tobacco use, aiming to foster a healthier and more aware community for all members. And both policies refer staff, parents, and visitors who violate the policy to the police for possible legal action, maintaining consistency and enforcement. Overall, the new tobacco and nicotine policy takes a more proactive and educational approach, aiming to prevent tobacco and nicotine use, provide support for individuals in need, and foster a healthier and more informed community at Souhegan High School. And the last proposal that we just passed was the drug and alcohol policy. The old policy language is more formal and regulatory in tone, emphasizing disciplinary consequences and legal ramifications, while the new policy language adopts a more holistic approach and explanatory tone, focusing on fostering a healthy environment and providing support for students' well-being. The old policy primarily focuses on prohibiting alcohol, illegal drugs, and the misuse of legal substances, as well as smoking and vaping, while the new policy expands the scope to explicitly include the misuse of legal substances, possession of paraphernalia, and being knowingly in the presence of drugs or alcohol. The old policy outlines specific consequences for various offenses, including suspension and potential involvement of law enforcement, while the new policy maintains consequences, but also emphasizes referral to appropriate medical or social agencies for education and treatment. The new policy introduces a section on self-referral, indicating support for students who recognize their own substance abuse issues and choose to seek help. The new policy expands on the responsibilities of faculty and staff, emphasizing training, awareness, and reporting procedures regarding substance abuse. And the new policy includes sections of unannounced searches, implementation guidelines, and a student services team referral process, providing a structured approach to addressing substance abuse incidents. Overall, the new policy shifts toward a more proactive and supportive approach, emphasizing prevention, education, and collaboration with external resources to address substance abuse issues within the school community. And the last thing I'm going to talk about is we have our first forum this Thursday on the 18th. So yeah.
Thank you. So I attended some of the discussions that you had about the policy, and it was over 3 different meetings. You guys really discussed all of these, so it's nice that the information was brought forward, a renewed approach. So thank you to the administration on that and the student discussion as well. Anyone have any comments, questions for Izzy?
Was it unanimously supported, these 3 policies?
Yes.
Great.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate the work done. And do you have, you're coming close to the end of the evening.
I'm coming close to the end of the year.
So, all right,
All right.
have fun tonight.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll see you.
So we'll go forward with the audit presentation. Amy, do you want to do an introduction? And
Yeah, we have, Matthew Murray from Vashon Cliche. Yeah, we're gonna move you up a little.
There you go.
And this is, Matthew's firm's second year doing our audit. He was here last year. So it's a 3-year contract that we have, and started the process in August, I believe, mid-September with, the field audit work. And then that continued back and forth, asking for information and providing drafts, and lots of work between Matthew's firm and the business office. Primarily Katie Hannon, our budget director, and Lisa Shabroy, our accountant, who's also a CPA, which is great. Payroll specialist, Kim Fredette, maybe Lindsay Santana a little bit.
Yep.
And possibly the accounts payable, I'm not sure, if Karen Sainsbury, but lots of interaction and work between the business office folks. So with that, I'll turn it over to Matt to give a brief presentation and then answer any questions.
Most important thing to school board, public, is the opinion on financial statements. And happy to say that the district received an unmodified opinion on its financial statements, which means that everything was presented in accordance with GAAP and all required disclosures were made within the notes of the financial statements. So I mentioned this last year, you're going to continue to see this for the foreseeable future. When you look at your statement of net position, which is page 1 of the financial statements, you'll notice that the district has a deficit. That is largely caused by GASB's 2 pronouncements, statement 68 and statement 75. And the high level overview is that everybody who contributes to the New Hampshire retirement system reports the unfunded liability. And the way that the retirement system presents that is they take everybody's contributions in during what they call the measurement period. And then they say, this is your proportionate share of the liability at this date, and it gets allocated out along with what they call deferred inflows and outflows of resources attributed to the pension and OPEB liabilities. So it looks bad, but it's really, it's not that bad. Everybody in the state has to report these, so aside from municipalities who have a extremely significant capital asset, or not capital asset, significant asset base themselves, everybody reports essentially a deficit in that position. As far as what the district is really concerned with is your fund-based financial statement. And that is page 3, which is a balance sheet for the governmental funds, and page 5, which is essentially And you think of it in the terms of what everybody's accustomed to, it's a profit and loss. And that shows the actual operations of the district during the course of the year. Our GASB pronouncement kind of rolls up. If a fund doesn't have a dedicated revenue source expected to continue, then it gets consolidated with the general fund. So when you actually look at the general fund's balance sheet, you'll see that there are three components of fund balance. There's the unassigned, which everybody knows that basically goes back to be able to offset the tax rate for the contributing districts during the next year. And then you have the committed component, which that should be anything that was voted at the annual district meeting in March of the prior year, and actual amounts attributable to the capital reserve funds and expendable trust funds. And the breakdown of the components of fund balance is actually split between page 23 and 24 in the notes to the financial statements. Like additional information, go there. One of the things I will say that I discussed it recently at the other board meeting that I presented at is the fact that the SAU staff actually took the time to, last year when we came out, one of our material adjustments that we had related to financial reporting of the student activity funds. And GASB introduced statement 84, or became effective 2 years ago for all municipalities, and student activity funds basically met the criteria for where they used to just report on the balances as an asset and an offsetting liability that was due to the students. They're actually now reporting on the ins and the outs of those. So we met with Katie last year, kind of discussed the approach that needs to be taken for it. And this year when we came out, she had actually gone through, everything was kind of maintained as is normal through the course of the year, but then she actually went through, identified what the ins and the outs were, and actually made that adjustment so that when we came out for the audit, we had it presented the way that we needed to, versus last year, we had to kind of go through and prove out everything and make sure that we had it. And then one of the other things that's important to the board, to the public, is how the district actually performed on a budgetary basis. And that's the Schedule 1, which is an RSI schedule. And what actually shows that the district during the year had revenues in excess of anticipated amounts of about 440,000, and had expenditures less than the budgeted amounts by about $872,000. So that ends up with the district having a fund balance at the end of the year of approximately $1.2 million. So one of the things that we present to the board is when we have material adjusting journal entries. We had one material adjusting journal entry in the current year, stemmed from what I believe, we had the adjusting journal entry last year, communicated it, it was posted, and then with the way, my understanding and seeing it in operation, with the way that the accounting system works, that entry was posted to the prior year, but then you have to re-roll the trial balances, which is kind of it allows you to operate in two separate fiscal
Yes.
years. So what ended up happening was I think that the trial balance maybe didn't get re-rolled. So when we came out, and it had no effect on ending fund balance amount, should say ending fund balance, any ending unassigned fund balance in the prior year, because it was an assignment of fund balance, so it actually would have come out. And in the current year, for us, all it did was we had to hit fund balance and then just back out the expenditures. And if the system had automatically accounted for that and rolled it forward, when the district was, or the SAU staff was going through and identifying what the year-end payables consisted of, they would have seen that and you'd say, okay, we know that that's something from the prior year, it just needs to be reversed. That happens, the operating system, when,
It's over.
yeah, two years, but you have to have the 2 years open. You're operating in the current year and we're coming in and we're actually auditing the records from the prior year. So it does, it does get missed. And I can say that one of the things that I actually really liked, I found this year, is the way that the SAU staff actually handles the encumbrances. So like, they stick them in their own separate fund
Yeah.
and then
Tracked out
actually,
separately.
yes,
Right.
versus I have seen this,
Yeah.
the system basically, any open encumbrances at the end of the year, the way that the operating system works is you can roll the POs and that effectively records an expenditure and records a liability, and that's not GAAP. So we don't, I'm so incredibly thankful that we don't have to go through and say, okay, what were all the rolled POs? What's an actual?
So no one understands, they close the POs and they record an accrual basically, and then when an invoice comes in, they take it against the accrual rather than going against the PO that it's already closed. Hopefully that clarifies.
It's-
I know it well now.
To give it a high overview, the system's
Yeah.
budgetarily geared versus your external reporting requirements are GAAP.
Yeah.
So when the system sees it a certain way, the system knows that if I record the expenditure and I record the liability, then when it gets paid in the next year, it just hits the fund balance account and then reduces the liability, and then you clear out any of the POs at the end of the year. So it's,
So it's a balance sheet.
Yeah,
That just-
Yeah.
That was a great explanation.
Yeah.
Good job.
okay.
I'll go over real quick, new standards that were applicable to the district during the year is what Gatsby has is statement 94, which is, they refer to it as P3s, public-private partnership, public-public partnership, and availability payment arrangements. I won't say never will be applicable, but highly unlikely that it will ever be applicable to the school district. The other one is subscription-based information technology arrangements, and that basically looks at it as anything that you have a long-term agreement with a software company, that has non-cancelable periods, you have to record a liability for the present value of all those future payments. Yeah, and this was one of the things that we kind of went back and forth on, which is one of the things that I think they didn't interpret what I was asking for, the way that, and I could have not been clear in my email. I have a tendency to do that sometimes. So we went back and forth and ultimately were able to determine that any such agreement wasn't material to the financial statement. And at the last meeting, we see Lisa Parker every year at the New Hampshire Government Finance Officers Association meeting, and she preaches materiality. She said, if it's not materiality, then you don't have to do it. We evaluated the ones that did meet that criteria, and they weren't material, so we discussed it with management, and they said, if it's not material, we don't have to do it. I'm not gonna put it into the financial statements.
That because most of our things are not that considered long-term, because they're just end of the year. So
Well, most of the stuff that's software, it's essentially a 1 year
yeah,
agreement,
yeah,
and then you've got the right to
To
be able
cancel.
to, to
Or-
cancel, or you have the right to be able to renew.
Right.
And we discussed it internally in our office, and it's kind of like, what was Gatsby thinking with this? Because almost every software agreement has some level of if you want to extend, you can, but then it's the level of certainty, like, if you have the right to cancel or the software company has the right to cancel. And we do see certain things, like I went over Microsoft Office, Adobe, things like that. Like, those can be canceled at any time, so those,
you don't worry about them.
they're considered short-term spitters.
Great,
What are some examples of public-private partnerships that might apply to a school?
To a school off the top of my head, I don't know. I only have one government that has any sort of that, and it's an agreement with Consolidated Communications where Consolidated Communications owns and is or they own certain portions of the fiber optic that's within the town, and the town took out a bond, and it's considered a town-owned network. but Consolidated is actually paying the town for the right to be able to use and be the sole provider in the town. That's why I say, like, you're not gonna have, you should never have anything in a school district that meets the criteria of a P3. It's actually a good question, and I can look into it further too, and I can shoot a response.
Yeah, the reason why I asked the question is, I don't know. To the extent we engage with our business community and they're the level of what they engage with us and how that operates may, in some circumstances,
Right,
be more for auditing purposes. Not aware of anything specific, just imagining potential future relationships that could be garnered. Yeah. Whether it be funding facilities or sponsoring activities or what things of that nature come to my mind, first instance. And maybe they're just don't apply by definition. That's why I asked the question.
it very well could be, because if it's something that's short-term, them sponsoring it, you're not gonna end up seeing that, because that's just a quick one and done transaction versus that's something that, so quick overview is you have your governmental funds and you have your governmental activities. Your governmental funds are everything that is current financial resources, so short-term in nature, and your governmental activities are everything that's long-term in nature. So that's the difference between them, is one's modified accrual basis and one's full accrual basis. So the full accrual basis accounts for everything like bonds, what used to be capital leases, is now finance purchase obligations, anything that meets the criteria for leasing obligations. So like what used to be operating leases no longer exist, and they're now actually, because that used to be just a disclosure where you'd say, here's our future minimum payments we have to make. Now you have to record an intangible right of use asset, and you have to record a lease liability in the financial statements. The GASB hasn't really done us as the auditors a lot of favors in the last 5 years. It's becoming increasingly difficult, and we try to communicate as best as we can. These are the types of things that we're looking for, because if you give this information to us, when we show up, we can go over it with you, evaluate it and say whether or not it's material. Does it need to actually be in your financial statements? I also want to touch on one thing that the business office brought up this year is town of Amherst actually collects impact fees. So we actually had a good discussion on that as to, you know, they are assessed on behalf of the school district, and should they be in the district's financial statements? And the ultimate conclusion, when we went back and we looked at, okay, you know, past GASB statements, what does it say as a non-exchange transaction? And the decision was made that district should report some level of an asset with an offsetting liability, and then once the funds are expended and requested from the town, at that point, they'll come in and they'll get recognized within the general fund as some level of a revenue. So you will see on the financial statements, you'll see unearned impact fee as an offsetting liability to the actual due from other governments.
Is that the whole fee that's available to us, or just the fee because it's Amherst versus like, does it? And that's the whole fee that would be available to us.
The balance that's reported
Yeah.
in here is the balance that's available to Souhegan. There's actually the same thing in Amherst as well.
Cause it's like, I was thinking the
There's
Amherst, Mount Vernon split, but this
Yeah.
is what's completely available to us.
Yeah.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. All right, other questions? I don't have a question for financial, I do have a question for Amy, though. The one of the questions that you mentioned about student activity fees, and Katie had made adjustments already for you.
Mhm.
Is it because activity fees not going through, like the transaction's not going through IB?
There,
Or because, well, like, what did she have to do journal entry? What? Because I'm just thinking, is it something that should automatically?
so, do you want me to?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Sound like-
So the way that they're actually being tracked right now in Infinite Visions throughout the course of the year is money comes in, gets deposited, goes to the individual student activity fees. The reason why it's actually being tracked that way is so that they can see what is due to each activity group versus when you're recording revenues and expenditures throughout the course of the year, you just have whatever the cash balance is, and you may not know what the liability associated, like, if
Oh, I see what you're
there's.
saying. I got
So as
it.
opposed
And then
to
when the
now,
system,
Because if they're just
the
doing
ins and the
cash.
outs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're just doing cash. Gotcha.
So how did that impact the student computer deposit? Wasn't that going into the activity fund? It's like it's just a general deposit? The $75, like-
$75.
Oh, for the,
Insurance.
the,
The
oh,
insurance,
for the technology,
The deposit.
Yeah.
that, that would have been tracked as well. That would have gone in.
So would that be like designated just for computer replacements or? Because I think before we said it was just going into the general fund and being spent wherever it was.
Yeah, no, we did track it for technology.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Sunny, do you have any questions before I forget?
I'm good, thank you.
I think that's it. Thank you so much. Appreciate your hard work. And, yeah, we'll see you next year. Thank you. All right, let me go back to the top where we're going to do, appointment of committee assignments. If you go to Trello, there's a list of all the committees. I was just gonna go down.
Where is that Trello? Is it the beginning? 'Cause I couldn't-
Yeah, if you go to Souhegan, it's under organization list.
Second one down.
Do we have to officially say public comment?
Oh, gosh. Yes,
I mean, there's no one here, but just so it doesn't.
thank you.
Sorry.
Like. So, yeah, so public comment, there's nobody here. Is there anyone online? And we'll
Just
keep it.
one person's online, but I think it's Mr. Bailey.
Mr. Bailey. So we'll keep the whole public comment running through the whole system as we got completely out of order. I really apologize for that. Okay, let me get to the board assignment, Trello card. Okay. I had a quick email exchange with CJ and with Beth. And also with Peg Bennett. I didn't contact her, but CJ said that Peg is on board.
She is.
So, I'd like to take a nomination. We'll have to do each one individually. But, nominate CJ Butler as our district treasurer. A second. CJ's done a great job
Yes.
and she's going to do it for a few more years. So, thank you. Thank you, CJ. We're gonna have to do a roll call vote. Sunny, do you want to start?
Yes, Daniels, yes.
You just.
Ron, yes?
Keep yes.
Who lays the Mormon, yes?
Thank you. And Peg Bennett is our deputy district treasurer, and she will nominate her for another year. Have a second? Second by Mr. Bayou. Again, thank you, Peg. We appreciate you stepping up and working with CJ. So we'll do a roll call vote on that one. Sunny?
Daniels, yes.
Glover, yes.
Yes.
You just.
Ron, yes?
Keep yes.
Who lays the Mormon, yes?
All right, and Beth Kuzma, appoint her as our district clerk. This was her first year, and we appreciate the hard work she did, and looking forward to working with her again. So I will make a nomination for Beth Kuzma. Can I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Peters. And we'll do any other comments on that one? Roll call vote. Sunny, I'll start with you.
All right, Daniels, yes.
Glover, yes.
Yes.
You just.
Grund, yes.
Keep yes.
Anna?
Oh, Glazerman, yes.
Okay. So I'm just gonna go down each one. I'm looking for 2 board members for each one, except for some of them that say 1. So manifest, we need 2 people to look at manifest.
I can do that.
I'll take notes right now.
Okay, O'Keefe,
Right in.
Mr. O'Keefe, and I hear Mr. Bayou. Okay,
Great, thank you.
Can we make the entire board alternates just in case?
Okay, the entire board is alternate, so you can just contact somebody.
Just in
We're
case,
running
yeah.
we're running into trouble to get signed.
Okay.
By bus.
Five of us there.
Just, we are offering the manifest training again this year.
I was gonna say, it's the advantage of the end of the night doing it again, you didn't have to advertise.
Yeah.
We're doing it for all board manifest signers, so you are welcome to attend. I'll send you an invite, but you seem to be experts at this. So I don't know if there's anyone else who would be interested in going, but, you can let me know. But I'll send you an invite.
All right,
And it'll be offered Zoom and.
great. We want to vote on,
Yeah, we like to vote to appoint manifest because they're dealing with board signings.
Oh, okay, so we'll vote on this one. We don't have to do it, but that's I do the rest. Okay, so, we'll take a nomination of Mr. O'Keefe and Mr. Bayou as the manifest appointments assignment.
With the entire board serving us back.
With the entire board signing
Thank you,
back.
sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Can I ask a question? Is it possible for us to go through, figure out if there's any that we have to like a disagreement on and then do one motion so we don't have?
Yes, we're not gonna, we don't need to do this on every single one. This is just manifest because they're signing on behalf of the board, so we're gonna do it just for this one.
Perfect.
And then we don't need to do it
Minimize
for the rest.
15 roll call.
100%.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's,
For the opportunities.
all right, great. So, I nominate kind of a second,
So seconded.
seconded by Mr. Glover. Guess we'll do a roll call vote. Sunny,
Daniels, yes.
Glover, yes.
Peters, yes.
Grund, yes.
Keep this. Thank you.
Julie Zimmerman, yes.
Okay, thank you. Policy committee. Who's interested in policy? We've got
Not policy, no,
policy.
other policy.
If Dan wants it, he can have it.
Do I, Dan and John, you guys
I
good?
mean, I've said this many times, it could be three, it's not a quorum. It's non-voting, but it's to be fair with the boards, but if anyone else wants to come, they can come and participate. We're very welcoming and appreciate all ideas are welcome, so. Please
Okay.
participate.
So who we got? I'm sorry, who we
So
got?
I have Dan and John.
Perfect, thank you.
Souhegan Finance Committee. You don't mind, I like that one.
No one minds.
What does that entail?
Going to their meetings during budget season to help answer questions and see if there's any more digging in that we need to do, give them any questions we can answer.
Okay, with there.
Anybody else want to do it?
I'll do it.
Mr. Reed?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing set aside. Everybody else wants to.
Okay, well, as we go through, anyone can speak up, we can go back and revisit it, some of them. SAU Budget Committee?
I can do that.
You wanna do that one? So I don't mind doing that, but Anna, you can have, you want that one? Expendable Trust,
Yes.
this comes up, when needed. Do they meet at least once a year? I thought they were going to, but quarterly, but don't they haven't at all this year, I'm aware of. Anybody interested in Expendable Trust?
Yeah, not the SAU, but
Hmm?
not on the SAU, but.
Not that, no, no, SAU budget's me.
I can do that.
The Expendable Trust? Yeah, we'll see if there's any that come up.
Whoever updated the Trello card, you could.
I needed to learn how to spell Dan's name because he's volunteering for everything. So, give me some grace, everybody.
Just throw vowels at-
Yeah.
at it.
I did have a lot of IEs and U's
You
in
got an
there.
extra, you got an extra eye.
Got it right once.
Yeah.
But two
It's
times.
getting there.
No problem.
You can't just write Dan, we only have one.
So I say you budget is made in.
I'm working on it.
This trust, it says two, this trust need two.
Yeah, I mean, I can do,
I've been up before.
we'll see. We'll come back. Might need a second on that one. Brick School Maintenance and Improvement Committee.
I'm on it now. I haven't been to any yet, but I'll stay on it.
Yeah, we just need one member. There's a meeting coming up.
I got it. I'm on it.
Okay.
Christie, you're
Yeah.
going to,
Great. Thank you.
okay. We'll still do that one. Wellness.
I'd like to stay with wellness. We're kind of in the middle of a project, so.
Okay,
Just beginning our journey. Make it
Yes.
better next year.
it's great. So it's nice to see that they're active, doing things. Community council, who would like to do community council?
I would like to do that this year.
You wanna do that?
Yes.
She's back up this year.
And Christine will be the backup.
So Sunny, just text me if you need me.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Athletic liaison. Just, is anyone interested?
I can do that.
Want to do that?
Nobody else wants it, I'll do it again.
And Dan. CIP? Who's interested? That's the one with the town, that coordinates with the town.
Cannot be a Malvern.
Cannot be a Mount Vernon person, so we found out.
Yeah,
What's entailed with that one? Who's done that in the past?
it's actually great. You go to meet at town hall and all the boards and departments come in and present their wish list for budgets, for capital budgets, for bonds and big money expenditures.
How many times?
Once a week for, aiming 4 weeks.
Yeah,
4 or 5 weeks,
maybe a little more, maybe 4 to 6 weeks.
4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
It's like two departments a week. Come in and present.
And is that a rolling committee though? Because I think a lot of your work's done, so are they gonna go in and just constantly refresh it every year? That might be even a lighter lift, no?
It's,
Yeah, it's not a big,
It's like in a 5-year increment, so it just moves forward, by a year. But there's a rep from this board and there's a rep from the Amherst board.
Yeah.
We actually met with, selectmen today to see if maybe I'm not a member of that, committee, but because I actually present the projects for the 2 school districts.
and you discuss
Yeah.
priorities of the request, when you want to do them, you assign a year, you actually get a vote on that, so.
Are you normally doing it during the day?
It's
No, it's
usually at 4
late-
o'clock.
late afternoon.
Almost always at 4 o'clock. And it used to be in the summer and now it's morphed to be at start of school year, but it may be like August, September, I'm guessing this year, so.
I think you did ask to have it.
I did ask to have it earlier because it started right when school was starting and that was
Yeah.
really hard. But if I'm not having to go to every meeting, then
I would do that.
you'll do that? Okay. And yeah, if anything comes up,
Unless they pick
I mean, I
Wednesday.
can be your backup if
If
something
I
comes.
can't, if it's Wednesdays, I'll have to have someone else cover. Other than that,
Okay.
it's not Wednesdays, I can make that work.
it was usually Thursdays because we had board meetings, I remember.
Oh, so it was like that.
That's okay. That I can do.
Okay, all right, we'll throw Anna in and, yeah, just speak up if it becomes
Oh, I can do that.
cool. Building and grounds, to work with Roger.
I did that. We never met
Stephen
last year, so.
I'll do that as well.
and John, all right.
Again, that's one that we could do 3 as well, if someone else was interested, right? Sure.
Yeah, that one could be you 3. Is there a third that was interested or?
Reconfiguration.
It does. Go with that, the selectman one, I'm gonna take the selectman one, and Christy, you can come too. I saw Bill Stoughton today, and he's the new school board liaison from the select board. And he mentioned that it would be beneficial if we met outside of board times to actually have an exchange of information between the boards, versus just coming to a school board meeting and watching it. Cause he's a rep for all the school boards, and he's like, on top of the meetings he has as a selectman, he doesn't think it's beneficial just to watch our meetings, but have an actual face-to-face, like coffee time or something would work. So I told him, yeah, probably makes sense if the chair, vice chair might sit down with him, or chair and another person, so I don't know. And then for Mount Vernon, I know, Stephen, you were doing that work. Are you interested in doing that one? Awesome. All right. Communication, which we need to figure that one out. We've been doing, it's just been all over the, we're trying. I don't mind, I don't mind trying to take that one on, trying to figure out how we're going to.
I'm gonna make a suggestion here, and Hannah, I hate to call you out for it, but is that something that you can take? Because I think you did a great job in terms of the blurbs that we
You
actually got. out.
did, you did,
And-
but at
It's a
times,
little bit more though.
If we
I would do it with someone. I
can
would have-
streamline, that's
Yeah.
it's a big ask.
okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to work together? We'll figure out the streamline of door.
That would be good.
Well, yeah. And then, Sunny, whatever we write up, if we can send it to you, if you can help get it posted up in Mount Vernon, that would be
I was-
great.
I was about to say that, yes.
Perfect. You'll be part of our little trio.
Yes.
That would be perfect. PPC, I would like to stay on PPC as a second year. Just because we got through the negotiations, we're still trying to clean up stuff. Unless someone has some long, hard desire to do that. I don't understand. I would stay on anybody else.
This is one that I wish there was three. I would like us to have a conversation with PPC, now that the hard part is done, see if we can modify a policy during the policy modifications to allow three. Up to three, doesn't have to be three, but it could be.
Okay, so that would be a policy adjustment, so we have to figure out the procedure between PPC and us to even have that conversation. I want to find out from our board if they're interested in pursuing that as well, because I know it's one person's desire, but I want to see if it's worth pursuing if everybody's.
I have no problem bringing the conversation to whoever the new chair is. I don't know when they organized. Are they through the rest of this year?
Yeah, and then they organize in the next, after vacation, May.
I think it's worth, I don't think there's any, I have no problem bringing it up with them and talking with them about, I mean, I don't know, I think that the two things to be careful of are, you know, once change and kind of balance there, like, and I don't know if that becomes an issue or not. And then the other thing I just want to be careful about is like, I know when I was on policy committee and we're doing a bunch of the G policies, I came to PPC meetings to present that. And if we
Can't
had
have-
three members, we would not, we'd have to do something, like someone would have to not attend if someone else. Whereas it just a consideration, not a reason not to do it, but a consideration to think about, because with two, no one else can come to present or talk about, or, I mean, not that it comes up a lot, but, you know, we'd have a quorum problem.
Is it currently allowable to have two and a visitor, or do you have to special arrange? for
You
that?
have to ask, you have the special arrangements as to. Yeah,
Which also means it's impossible to have backup. With the current framework.
no, there's two
Only one person
Right.
votes.
votes. There's two people that are in the
Okay.
UPC, but only one votes.
So as long as one shows up,
I
our
guess
represented.
the strength of having more, in my view, is more brain receiving the idea, more collaboration to come to consensus of what that vote should be. More representative of the board, it'd be easier to share information to the rest of us who are not on the board. To distribute the whatever information was received by the committee members. To me, that is healthy, and we have this unique opportunity, being 7 members, that we can have 3 without breaking quorum. I think we should strive to do that.
I just want to look at
Frequently as
the
possible.
balance of all PPC because it is an arrangement with.
Well, obviously, they would need to have conversation with them. Did you raise the question of whether or not this board would be interested?
I did, with this
Raising the
board.
question with
Yep.
the PPC.
So it's a few, so there's probably enough to raise that we can have that conversation with them and see going
That'd
forward.
be great.
NHSBA. I know we don't usually attend NHSBA very much, but it might be something, there's a lot of changes going on.
Yeah.
With,
Okay, you wanna do that with me? I know it says 1, but maybe we can collaborate. It connects a lot to policy and it connects a lot to, Congress. Yeah. No, you're not necessarily, no.
That was,
I don't look at that as
one
just-
once during the year they actually meet.
Yeah, but I don't look at that as just, going to the one meeting. That's looking at their updates, which includes the policy updates. They also put their legislative updates out and their positions on those
I
things
read
from time to
Those,
time.
those I get on another email.
Yeah.
bet you
So, if you're already reading them, maybe we can collaborate on and, spread the information to others.
Yeah. There's,
Okay.
All right, so John will do that. Constitutional interpretation, they haven't actually met for a couple of years now.
I was gonna say, I've been on it for 2 years and we haven't.
No, that comes up when there's a,
Constitution that needs to be interpreted. So it's
right,
like,
but we have one member that's ready to go.
I'm
If
happy to
needed.
stay on the
Wanna stay on
Constitutional
that one?
Interpretation Committee unless someone feels strong.
Could that also be more than one? Or is that policy?
I think that's actually in the Constitution
And
and
if
how
it's
how
not,
it's
if you
made.
want it, you're welcome to have it. I'm just, I don't feel.
I'd be interested in it. I recently read the Constitution, and actually, among our board goals discussion, I want to propose an amendment, which hasn't been made since it was born in 1999, so.
So let's put John on constitutional interpretation. I have no problem with that.
I will.
All right. All right, so is it John, Anna, or both?
See, my 2 years, I think we only need just the one.
Just the one, John?
Policy, and then Constitution has.
And then RSEC is, they'll talk about that, I guess, at the SAU. So that would be all of our committees.
We also have the rec agreement. Do we want to revisit that and just reaffirm or
Yeah.
get volunteers for that?
Yes, because now that we got through all that, so the rec, yeah, remember we were gonna look through the rec, yes, it is that time, and thanks for the reminder on that. So yeah, so we probably should have at least two looking at that.
And I will. do
No,
that
third.
again.
So this is looking at the rec department agreement questions, so that Stephen wants to do that,
We have to add one.
yeah. Stephen, and who else wants to look at that? I mean, you want,
But interesting.
Dan? Do you think that's two or three? Do you think there's gonna be
Two's fine. I think.
two's fine?
We have to do our due diligence first.
Okay,
Who actually falls under the scope of the athletic liaison.
yeah, so that works out.
I thought it was a good idea. You brought it up, so I'm glad to help out with it.
Okay. All right, I think that's all of them. So thank you, everybody, for making that a smooth process. I appreciate it. Policies, we have on the consent agenda, some second read on policies, EBB, EBBD, GBCD, IJL, and IJOC. Are there any comments about that before we take a vote on the consent agenda?
I'd like
Mr.
to
Bayou.
remove, GCDB or
GBCD, I think it was.
GBCD.
Can you explain why?
Yeah, one of my peeves is it's more stylistic in some cases, but I think in this case, mixing the word will and shall with a legal document kind of creates ambiguity that we want to stay away from. Maybe it's being a little nitpicky in this case, but I think it's important that we adopt policies that keep words consistent and terms consistent. And I backed off of a couple of cases where we said, well, let's just let it go through and we'll fix it later. I don't think we ever got to the fix it later part, so I'd like to insist that this go back to policy. If you look at the legal definition of will and shall, there's some ambiguity in shall and will that isn't there with shall. So
I didn't hear which one.
GCDB.
GBCD.
GBCD. For example, will is more something that you would put, there's it implies flexibility or judgment. Something they would put in more of a job description. For example, the superintendent will facilitate an atmosphere of peace, love, and understanding in the SU office. Is kind of tough to do if you have to announce budget cuts.
I liked it.
But, it's aspiration. It can be, the successful candidate will perform classroom observations, annual performance reviews, attend board meetings, and provide instructional leadership. If they don't do all those things, nobody's going to lose their job necessarily. It can be a future expectation of action. The tour group will visit the zoo on Thursday. No one's going to get in trouble if it rains. If it rains and the group goes to the museum instead. Shall is an obligation. It's a firm obligation. The superintendent shall require background checks. If you look at the laws, this policy references, you will find the first one on the list, you will find 39 references to the word shall, 0 references to the word will. Don't mix will and shall when it comes to an obligation. It's pedantic, I know, but it's something that I've seen in other policies that, you know, you want consistency within the policy and between policies. So I think we need to talk about style guides, adopting a style, legal style for these things. I don't want to get to court. I don't want to get into a legal situation where we pay lawyers three hours of time to argue over the definition of will and shall. You know, it's going to happen. Lawyers like to maximize their billable hours, so there's going to be a debate on it. So let's put the right words in the right places, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to volunteer for policy committee. I want to put my money where my mouth is and work on this stuff.
Okay. Can I have it back from policy committee when this was looked at? About, did anyone look at will shall? Was that every part of the conversation or no?
No, and I'm happy to second the pulling it out, and I think that's I think on the one hand, I think they're actually, I would see them as interchangeable. But on the other hand, I don't think that means they should both be in the same document. I think that's a good point. The consistency is important there because otherwise it does raise the question of, is it intended to have a different meaning in the different places?
Mhm.
Yeah, there is a place in the beginning of the document where it says the superintendent will require background checks, but the applicant shall provide the district with a criminal history, because there's some flexibility that the superintendent has that the applicant doesn't have. You know, so there is some room.
The
that
shall, okay.
lawyers would love to get.
So we have at least two interested in pulling it back. I think.
That's
Okay,
totally good with that.
Okay.
I love that stuff.
so we'll
Fighting for this kind of stuff for a long time.
pull that out
Not
and,
that one specifically, but that's sort of
I
style
mean,
guide
this is just an
stuff,
example.
consistency in the language.
okay,
Using as well.
I was gonna say, John and I both missed that one. I mean,
Well, in that policy, we were only ripping out one definition and replacing it with a
right.
state.
okay.
That's our focus.
All right, are there any other questions or
I
comments?
just want to remind, what we talked about last time was talking about the consistency of the ongoing checking of volunteers in that policy. That was going to go back to the policy committee for discussion. Stan's not going to be there now, it's just John in there, so we can just bring it up as well.
Mhm. Perfect.
Well, I guess I would say, is there an urgency to just adopt this policy, notwithstanding, and then revisit it and re-adopt it at a later date? Sir, the only thing we did was there's a definition of designated volunteer in the
That
existing
needed to
policy
be cleared.
that now it exists in a different policy and it's a different definition. So if we don't adopt the policy now with the note to bring it back to the committee, to send it back to the cycle and maybe see it back in August or something. Then we'll have two policies with two definitions of the same term.
Mhm.
That could be problematic.
Can we?
That's a
can
good
we
point,
pull it
and-
out and vote on it separately and then vote to have it go back to committee or the policy committee or?
I don't know if we necessarily have to vote for it to go back to policy committee. I think we can say that with the notes, since you two are both on the policy
It's
committee.
your-
Push it back.
As a procedural recommendation, right? If you agree not to pull it out, we approve as John had suggested. And then after we're all done with that, someone can make a motion to move this policy back to policy to discuss those two issues.
Yeah,
The terminology of will versus shall, and then my hope is to
They'll clarify.
ongoing.
okay,
The ongoing what?
The volunteer, designated volunteer distinction with their
Mhm.
background checks. Because as it's written now, it's one and done.
one and done and not ever
Whereas an
renew it.
employee is required to
Oh, right.
report the
You
rest.
mentioned that previous meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then mine must be in the.
There's no obligation. of
Yeah.
volunteer.
so we'll pass the consent agenda as is, and then we can have a second motion that can say to push it back to policy.
I would like to pull IGL because I want to abstain.
Okay, for that one
That's the
particular.
only reason. Yeah. No discussion or.
IJL too, okay. All right, so I'll need first of all, let me ask about draft minutes. Are there any comments about draft minutes, any changes? No? Good. Okay, so I will take a motion to accept policies EBB, EBBD, GBCD, and IJOC.
Could you say those one more time?
EBB.
Yep.
EBBD, GBCD, and IJOC, as well as the draft minutes on the consent agenda. You can have a move.
So moved.
So we got motion by Mr. Glover,
You got all the-
second,
Alphabet salad?
Second.
Okay.
second, I saw Mr. Bayou. Not sure any more discussions really needed, so Sunny, I'll start with you.
All right, S. Daniels, yes.
Glover, yes.
There you go.
Peter, yes.
Grund, yes?
Keith, yes.
Julie Zimmerman, yes.
Okay, and then we'll have, a motion to accept policy IJL.
So moved.
Second.
Any other discussion on that? No? Okay, we'll take a roll call vote. Sunny?
Daniels, yes.
Glover, yes.
There you go.
Peter abstained.
Grund, yes?
Keith, yes.
Julie Zimmerman, yes.
All right, and then the motion to send GBCD back to policy committee for clarifying the use of shall and will, as well as the timing of background checks for designated volunteers.
So moved.
Timing for redoing of that.
Yes.
It's the, at years later, 5 years, 3 years, sometime.
Some.
2 years, annually,
Yeah.
whatever.
All right, so motion made by Mr. O'Keefe and second by
You got it.
Mr. Bayou. Thank you. Any other discussion? Now do a roll call vote on that. Sunny?
Daniels, yes.
Glover, yes.
There you go.
Peter's, yes.
Grund, yes?
Keith, yes.
Julie Zimmerman, yes.
All right, thank you very much. Under reports received, we have a principal's report. Dana, is there anything you want to highlight before we ask about any questions?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, can I open it up for questions? Anybody have questions for Dana? Not,
Just a comment, which is I don't have any questions for you, because I want to give you some space to finish the year strong, but I'm gonna have a lot, I feel, for you in June to see how it went.
That's good.
Okay, appreciate you, John. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else? Couple things I just want to ask.
I'll just highlight on page 87 of the packet, the top paragraph about folks that have NC sort of designation. I really like you calling it out and saying that we're working as hard as we can to support those kids to make sure that they finish the year strong. So thank you very much for that.
Yes, thank you. And just I note that there's a comment about looking at senior project and I just want to say that I want to make sure that we are still honoring the idea of senior project as a graduation requirement and keeping it full and strong, which I know is a piece of it. Because my concerns a little bit how JLP has ended up as a couple different papers in an English class versus the research paper it used to be when we're now sending freshmen to college and the first thing they're all doing is writing a 6 to 7 page research paper. And if we don't give them that experience, I'm afraid they're not getting that strength. So I just want to make sure we're honoring the strength of the senior project. That's my only. But excited about Hype musical, all good stuff. So thank you.
Shame on me, I highlighted something in there and I forgot to write it. The end of year award ceremony, can we just make sure, I know we talked about last year of incorporating in our trade programs into that as well, so those kids are recognized for doing all the work that may be off campus and include that in the academic discussions and accolades.
Yes.
Thank you.
Got it. Thank you. But thank you for everybody who's been doing so much hard work in the school. There's been so many positive things happening. It's exciting to see. So I just want to thank everybody. Any other comments on reports received, facilities, treasury reports, NASDAQ? Comments, questions?
I just have to say one thing that you just said. I think we've got a great school here, right?
Mhm.
And we don't talk about that stuff enough. We always talk about sort of the doom and gloom, the bad stuff, what people complain about.
Difficult
But what you
things.
just said really solidifies. There's a lot of awesome things going on here. And this community, our two towns, should be really proud
Mhm.
of the things that are happening inside this building.
Mhm.
This organization is top notch and there's a lot to be really proud of. And that falls on you and it falls on our SAU staff. I don't think we say that enough, and for folks that are listening at home, you've got a great institution here, and we should be thankful for it. So thank you.
I agree.
Yeah, because I mean, we really do try to look at all kids, like one of the things you just said, like the NC, hey, we're just gonna do something to make sure we look at, it. It's like, hey, it's not that small.
Yeah.
Right, it's a big thing that we're looking and trying to address the needs and really looking it up for all kids, so we do appreciate that.
Right now, you go home.
I'm definitely one of those that's guilty of speaking up more when it's a problem rather than giving comments, good comments when they're deserved. It's definitely well deserved overall.
All right, so move on, no community council, because we already covered that. Any board updates? Is there anything anyone wants to highlight? Things happening with wellness. John, you said something about the progress, something in progress.
Yeah, but we
Not yet,
haven't had the meeting yet, so
not there yet.
not there yet.
Okay,
Soon, I imagine, soonish.
Yes, we're gonna have wellness week in May.
Wellness week, 5 meetings or 8 hour, 40 hours to train.
It's an event every day, so it'll be fun.
yeah. Actually, you know what? I want to go back to the facilities board stuff. Question, I know in our board notes, you wrote about the skylights and the first skylights that are tied into the fire suppression system and the difficult nature we're having of having to actually design them specific for the school because they're not just replacement parts. What does that look like cost wise? And I mean, is there more that we need to do to support the work getting done that we can help out with or?
And that, for me, that'd be a question that I could specifically ask Roger,
Roger,
and that way we could write up
okay,
his answers. I would not
I
want.
want to make sure.
Amy
Yeah,
or
right now,
stuff to walk through it.
we don't necessarily know, but we're not at the point where we're projecting needing more funds.
Okay.
We have we've held off on buying the additional furniture as sort of a contingency. So that's still gonna be sitting there, because we don't have a final cost for phase one. We do for phase two now.
Right,
So. and then
and we're
public
gonna end
hearing-
up doing
They're
this,
switching. I debated whether we could change the name, but there will be a public hearing next month, for the phase two.
okay. Okay, because it seems like it's been a lot more difficult than we originally estimated
Yeah,
it to be.
and we did, try to get
Oh, yeah,
a waiver.
we can talk about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. Thank you, sorry. I just want to back up on that. All right, any other committee comments? Policies not organized yet because we'll be doing
Correct.
that with new, so we're probably gonna,
Last year's work done.
okay,
TBO.
okay. All right, so I'm gonna move on from committees assignments then and look at the field trips. Two things before we talk too deep into the field trips. The robotics one is getting pulled right now because of timing, but also they did not make it to nationals. That's I did mention to Mr. Chamberlain about my concern of the ongoing nature of just the, if they make it to nationals, it's a $7,500 fee just to go. And then on top of that, travel costs and everything else and shipping the robot. I said, that's a lot. And then it's never known until last minute whether it even needs to be done. But he did say that there is money available. There's usually grants and things available to help them. So it's not like if they don't fundraise, they don't have the ability to go, there are grants. It's just, we don't have the need to go, sure.
It's, is the shipping of the robots part of the reason they drive?
It depends
They follow
where
their
it
trailer.
goes. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why they drive around to most
But
competitions,
I mean, like
yes.
driving down to Houston. 'Cause I
You
saw that,
you
which,
ship it a week ahead of time, yeah, so you have a date, you have to ship it, pack it, so it drop ship it. The robotics competition provides support for that kind of shipment, but it has to arrive by certain, you have to stuff, no hands on it anymore. Ship it.
there's a future solution, but I mean, one of the things that struck me is that it's 7 days out of school.
Right, timing.
And I understand that flying might be more expensive, probably is more expensive, but it's much less time out of school. And I don't love the idea, that's a really, really long drive.
Yes,
That's a,
Like, I don't love the idea of,
I've driven that drive.
yeah,
yeah.
it's long and tiring. It's a tiring.
Right.
It's something we could discuss, as we plan for
future.
next year. I agree with all the sentiments. It's
Yeah.
a long time, it's a long drive, and I think, it's worth looking at, fundraising and making sure they have the appropriate money. But then, at the end of the day, let's say it costs 15,000 for 5 days, there's probably a bigger conversation, with the organization, because I'm not sure how reasonable something like that is. And so there's many questions that I have as superintendent, and I know, that I want to look into prior to next year, because we want to fully support.
Yeah, so
You know,
good educational
Basic, they got in
experience.
and they got to go.
Right.
Like, it's, I mean, it's like, I'm not in any way, I mean, I'm fully in support of the idea, it's just that there seems to be some complicating factors.
Yes, so then the other piece
Could I
about,
just say a thing
Yeah.
about the robotics?
Yes.
I mean, they made it to the Games last year and then it got by their own decision. So we didn't even see that.
Right.
Here. That would happen to them because it's so expensive, because they're so damn good. And the fundraising piece, this is one of the places where I was thinking where business communities may be willing to sponsor the robotics team. I mean, there's a lot of small industrial machine shop type businesses all around here. In Amherst and in some surrounding communities that could very well be interested in contributing. And some of them are business owners are Amherst residents. I have to know one.
I personally have a small tech company here in Amherst.
There you go.
Don't be willing to.
You can sign the first check.
Please put it in the
From
minutes.
what I understood, it won't show up in the audited financial statement.
Just a logistics question on that.
I just to finish the thought
Yes, sir.
was just to say, I don't know who to be the lead on that, maybe the robotics adult, but maybe in consultation and collaboration with business staff or the marketing people, maybe even some of the students could get involved. It could be a thing to help them, particularly because it's so expensive, maybe comparative to other fundraisers that other organizations do. So that was my thoughts I had. I don't know what they're doing on that.
And the only thing I was curious about along those lines, I think it's a great idea, is like, are they allowed to hold money in an account? Or does that create some giant budget issue? Like, are they different than us? Like, could they fundraise $5,000 a year? And that they're not necessarily needing, like, could they accumulate up so that they've got sitting in an account? If we make it to nationals, we've got these funds available that then get replenished.
The activities account doesn't get purged, it's not one of our accounts.
Okay, that's a account, it's not one of ours, that's what I wanted to
And
make sure.
the only thing that you have to be true is you have to be authentic in what you ask. If you're asking for a future possibility
Right.
of nationals, yes.
We're gonna hold this, and when we go, we're gonna recognize everyone who chipped in and made this possible, but we know we won't be able to do the fundraising between April 4th and April 14th, when we need to leave
Right.
in the year that we make it.
But
So-
typically, if you make the nationals, you get information from robotics about benefactors in your state and your community. The armed services will give you 5,000. BAE is tremendous support.
Okay.
So when Hopkinton went to the nationals in Orlando, it was just like this. We didn't know, we didn't expect to make it.
Okay.
And then we got a grant to ship the robot for free.
Okay,
So that's part, once you make it, you have access to other funds. And we had to do some fundraising, but it wasn't every year, and it was it was tremendously supported by, as you said, businesses as well as the community.
Okay.
And they actually, I told a story, they went down and stayed an extra day because they got to see the space shuttle take off. So they met NASA was a part of it, and so I was the principal at the time, called me and said, can we stay an extra day to watch the space shuttle? He said, we're gonna stay anyway, but if you sit down. So. Tremendously supportive. I don't think it'd be a barrier, because if you think about the schools all over this country with access, right? Robotics is very affluent communities to very socioeconomically challenged, and they all want this experience to have. So there is an abundance of funds
that allow for this special piece. Last year it just wasn't as connected. This year we were gearing up. We met about it and brought it here because we expected to go, but it just, you know, it had a bad day at the robot.
No.
Okay.
So thank you for that discussion. And then I just, because right before the meeting, I happened to have a very brief conversation with Dana about, looking at different field trips in the future. Can you just explain the little bit that you said? Because I think it'll be pertinent to what we're gonna cover.
There's a long and wonderful history of support for international field trips at Souhegan. We see it a lot with our science department, we see it a lot with our world language department, but we also see just in general from other staff members who are really passionate about the learning that takes place on international trips. So for example, the trip to Argentina that we had wasn't really connected to any content area. It was just really about the experience and cultural experience. One of the ongoing conversations that we've been having as a school recently, though, is that, you know, these trips are not cheap. And when families make the choice to allow their kids to go, it's an investment. And so we want to make sure that we can set families up to be able to plan for such trips really before they come. So our after break, we're putting together a group of staff members who have recently taken a trip, are planning to take a trip, or have taken a trip in the past to review kind of logistics and procedures for these international experiences, with the idea that we'll have a really cohesive set of kind of parameters for everybody. We're not scrambling like, can I see your behavior plan? Can I see your behavior plan? And also so that we can create a 5-year vision, so that families can know, hey, in 2025, here are the trips that are going. In 2026, here are the trips that are going. Again, for planning, also for, because people have to make hard choices, because sometimes I want to go to Bermuda and I also want to go to France, and I have to pick one. So having the ability to kind of suss that out ahead of time, I think is what's good for kids and families. The other thing that I'm hoping that we'll talk about is supporting students in fundraising efforts, because it is a lot of money, and even if you raise $200, it's valuable. So that'll be part of the conversation as well. And we're having that meeting after April break, so hopefully we'll have some things to share for the upcoming school year.
Are there any options for students who simply cannot pay the cost of these things?
Yeah, so it depends on the organization that you're traveling with, but a lot of times, if you get X amount of signups, they will comp you a scholarship. We also do have some funds earmarked for like scholarships for kids who don't have them, but that needs to be part of the conversation as well, how to expand that.
I was in 8th grade school, partnered with the YMCA to have a trip called the Heritage Tour. We went from Maine to DC and visited all the previous former capitals of the United States, Philadelphia, Lexington, all this. And planning started a year in advance, and we brought in over 10 months, brought in 1/10 of the cost of the trip. So that's something that we're able to plan ahead enough to
Yes, that's
do it over 2 or 3 years for some kids.
right.
or-
That's the hope. That's the hope, because if we commit to that 5-year plan, we'll know. So we'll be able to lock in with these companies. If this is where we're going, we'll be able to lock in at the lower rates, and we'll be able to provide people time to save or fundraise. That's the plan. Yes.
All right, so thank you for that, because I thought that was valuable, because we do have a field trip in front of us for France and Switzerland.
Oh my God.
What came up was I got concerned, starting to see the cost getting closer and closer to like $5,000 a kid, and who's able to go, who's not even gonna look at it, because I know we do have scholarship money, but that's what the conversation came out, so that's where that conversation came from. So any comments, questions about the field trip for France and Switzerland?
I have one, which is maybe foreign language, more broadly about foreign language. maybe about the educational value. I mean, are we still gonna have German students coming here?
Yep, we have
We
4
send in
students going over
we
eighth
send-
grade to Germany.
That's that exchange.
Mhm.
I would almost like to see us, not that's for that necessarily, I'm not saying that, but it made me think like, boy, that's kind of an investment in higher achieving students, educationally driven students, to give them a more of an exchange type of experience where they embed in a local school, where they live with a local family, as opposed to just be a tourist, which is something they could also do with their families.
Mhm.
And if the school system was gonna take a cost burden and support this wholeheartedly, that might be an easier, be more personal and interesting for the student, and maybe more achievable financially for them and the system supporting them.
Well, you might know someone who knows someone in France, John.
I do personally,
Um,
but that's not kind of where I'm coming from, actually.
No, our two teachers, our two French teachers have already approached me about wanting to set something up.
It's excellent.
Like that, you know, and there's lots of, like, the German exchange is, you know, something that's been longstanding, and we partner with Nashua to do that. But there's lots of those around that have been around for a really long time, and so it's definitely an opportunity, and I think we have 2 people who are really motivated to get it off the ground, so that'll be a part of our conversation after break
Yeah,
too.
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And, you know, just all of these endeavors, they just keep coming back. Like, what prevents us from having conversations with our business community who may be somewhere connected to world language and culture, might want to support them?
Yeah.
You know, certain restaurants would come to mind, or different business communities supporting our students. And it could be really cool. Untapped, it seems to. Like NASCAR. Yeah, well, I don't know.
Okay, so we're gonna get back to
We'll get to the
approving the
NASCAR piece
trip.
and we get the score.
All right, so any other discussion about the trip? Otherwise, we'll call for a motion for approval, because
Move to approve the trip.
to approve the trip. Mr. O'Keefe, second by Mr. Vayu. Sunny, roll call vote. I'll start with you.
Daniels, yes.
Mr. Glover.
Glover, yes.
Yes.
Hughes, yes.
Grund, yes.
Yes.
Zimmerman, yes.
Okay, thank you. And I need to back up to the community council thing because I was not reading it correctly. We need to make the announcement that we are looking for 3 representatives for community council, 2 from Amherst, 1 from Mount Vernon. It's the 2-year rotation. So we will also get this out on the website and send it out via all the social media and through maybe the emails. We can put it in the school newsletter this week, maybe, Dana, looking for people who are adults who are interested from our community.
How many people again?
3, 2 from Amherst, 1 from Mount Vernon. And we look for anybody. You don't have to be a parent associated with the school. We're looking for retirees. We like to have a variety of opinions on that board as part of community council. So thank you. We'll get that out. The scoreboard is on, and history on that.
Yeah, you want to start?
Mike or whoever.
Yeah.
Because we
I'll
did,
say it's the original one. It's the original scoreboard, so it's 32 years old. I'll let Steve, if we need more, you know, we should. For me, I think it is really clear that we've gotten the most use out of this. And since I've arrived, it's been in conversation since 2020 on the failing of the school board as a working piece of equipment. So it's necessary, but we can talk a little bit more about the process on how we kind of got there this year.
Yeah, it really started last year. So not this fall, last fall, we hosted a state championship at Souhegan Division III. And that was the first time very publicly that there was concern that in a very important game that the scoreboard wasn't working. We patched it together last year. Mike and I went to a game. And I think you and I counted 7 times in the first quarter that the scoreboard stopped working. And we patched it together. The electricians looked at it and said, it is end of life. It is no longer a dependable piece of our equipment supporting athletic contests at the field. in our discussions with the superintendent, it was a priority that we take a look at how can we stabilize this piece of our very public, but very important for state championships and other significant games of kids in the community. Kelly and Tony had worked last year, didn't end up in the budget because last year and this year, we were trying to get sponsorship. We're looking for appropriate sponsorship, not looking for cigarettes, usual stuff in schools. They went to the usual vendors, which are typically beverage, non-alcoholic beverages, Coke, Pepsi, and all that stuff. In central New Hampshire, I asked them to reach out to financial institutions in central New Hampshire. Some banks have been known to just support with, and we've really, we didn't come up with any significant sponsorship. So we started looking at savings within the athletic department, due to transportation based on, remember, we've done the vans, which was cheaper than the vans. So there were savings inside the athletic department, which is pretty close to funding the amount. Kelly, Dana, I, Mike, Amy Roger looked at everything and felt that the reason why this isn't part of the fund balance discussion is simply because very similar, it's ordering in time for installation. We waited to the end of June. It could not be guaranteed, set up and functioning, and you really need it by the third week in August is when the field will start using. So if we waited until June, so in all our internal discussions, we completely understand that this may impact, if we don't meet our goals, this may impact the ban, which we can cancel, we have it right. But in Mike and his discussions, the priority is a working, functioning, very public, very dependable scoreboard, which, as Mike said, doesn't owe us anything. I went to Dana and I were at the lacrosse game this week. It is really not a good representation of where we are now and the technology. And we're not doing it, as Kelly really says, we're not doing video. This is just a very normal.
Says we're not doing the 180,000.
We are not. But we really want to move on this. And then by the third week in August, we feel if we can move on this now, we will have a functioning scoreboard for the next 20 years. I think it's now LED, right? So it's less energy use, less power. Like we're not, and Roger's doing all this. Roger's very intimately involved. There's all of us, Mike, Amy, Dane, Roger, Kelly, good collaboration trying to get this done.
So, yeah, I'll just add Kelly chose to go with a quote from Speed Pro. They're a local company. They have a strong connection to the community, so that's a positive. And all of the quotes are in Trello for you to take a look at, as well as there's an image of it. From the financing standpoint, we have a budget transfer for the board to review and hopefully approve for 40,000. The quote has been selected is for a little over 33,000. We anticipate possible additional costs for debris removal. It shouldn't be too much. Some demo as well as some electrical work. We're going to try and use in-house personnel for that, but just in case it's outside of his expertise or he just doesn't have the time to do it, we have the additional funds as a buffer, but hopefully it will be less than what we're asking for the transfer for now. So as Steve said, the savings in the transportation line was for use of the van, as well as less of a need to hire charter buses. Butler has been able to staff those needs better than they had in the past. We have adjusted the athletic transportation budget down for next year. But we did have extra funds this year to be able to request this budget transfer. So there's a lot of information in Trello, all the different quotes. Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, there was one that was significant, there was the one that was significantly higher.
Yeah.
There was one that was significantly about 18,000.
It does not include insulation.
Okay, that was my only question on
Yep.
it. I'm like, there's gotta be something why it's so
Yeah.
different than the others.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
And,
No chance we can get the jumbotron.
Zero.
No,
Just had ends.
no.
Have you been talking to Kelly?
Plug in a big TV underneath.
Pro is the same as Watch Fire.
Yeah.
We're talking option C for the fixed digit. Is that the one?
It's the one that's 33.
375.
Yeah.
30, okay, that was.
That one?
Yeah, I think that's it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Only I
There's
think
no-
it's gonna have white lights.
Yeah,
Which one?
the time will be white.
Yeah,
You said it was Speed Pro, right?
But which is also what?
yeah,
Watch fire,
yes.
only because this person's email address is the same as SP Pro.
Right.
I watch fire. So I'm just trying to figure out which one it looked like.
All right.
I just still don't know.
You don't know which one it is?
That was
Page
Go here on
174.
Trello.
page 147,
174.
Are you in Trello or the board packet?
and then the board packet,
174.
174.
Say a Trello, if you go to the Trello card, it pictures them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So Mike, why didn't we engage the Booster Club to fundraise last year?
Yeah, I don't think, a couple things, I think, I'm not sure if it falls under the responsibility of the Booster Club when they're fundraising for so many things that are directly related to the students. It came up way early on in like my first time as principal. And there was some conversation about, they weren't, thinking that it was something that, should be their priority. We talked a little bit about that, but I haven't engaged with them in quite some time since that first year, because it's been an ongoing piece, so. I haven't heard, where Kelly was at it, haven't came up with conversation. Steve, I'm not sure if you had conversation.
You know, we
with
look
Dana.
for sponsorship, and I think most boosters go beyond the minimum. I think a scoreboard is a minimum requirement.
Yeah.
Boosters would be beyond the minimum. There is.
There would be multiple sports that use it anyway, right? It's not just.
And we don't have a
Football,
school.
football,
anything-
soccer,
anything-
soccer,
Steve, now that you asked, we don't have a school-wide
Booster
booster
club.
club. We have sports specific. And
You'd
we
have-
tried to organize a school-wide booster club. It hasn't manufactured. So,
Too bad you couldn't replace it for a baseball. team.
and then when I was in conversation very minimally with the sports specific one, that's where it came up, if I recall, from 2020. So.
Is there an opportunity to sell ad space around the sign?
Well, no, ask, look into it.
I don't know if that one has
Well,
the space.
maybe an ROI on the Jumbotron if you get sponsorship for the pizza places and the car dealerships.
Don't think
Just
we're
saying.
not going up of.
Who makes money?
Absolutely. We like revenue.
That little man that sits here will not like it.
Other
Put
questions?
some commitments to that before you ordered it.
How much in a jumbo jet?
We need a motion to
All right.
approve the budget.
We need a,
transfer?
we need a motion to approve the budget transfer, yes, thank you.
Second,
Right,
further discussion? Just wanted to ask, there was a picture of the basketball scoreboard in all of the pictures that were in these quotes. So question is the basketball scoreboard coming next?
I heard more about the softball one is the biggest concern right now. I've not heard,
After the football one?
correct, I've not heard, Kelly has not mentioned to me, and I've been in the gym, I don't notice any big, I went to a couple of games, about unified stuff, I didn't see any major, it wasn't like we went to the basketball game,
and can we have,
some football games.
those put into the budget versus doing these transfers and funding it that way? Can we make sure there are any budgets, or is it a conversation?
Yeah, we can absolutely, that would be the intent to put it in the budget, but, in a quest to make the budget manageable, it was removed 2 out of the 3 years I was principal, so we could get to the number that we wanted, as we were organizing our budget. And this would be an unassigned fund balance type activity. If was gonna be able to be delivered in time. So I don't think a transfer is the most preferred way, but where we're at.
No. Yeah, I think I'd rather have it in the budget than let us wrestle with the fact we want to lower the budget or not, and what the feelings are around that as well, but.
Well,
I
we-
support this transfer, because it's badly needed.
It's badly needed, and we wouldn't ask it if we could, and in previous years, it has been in the budget, and then removed by a recommendation from school board, or a finance committee, or a subcommittee, or me, or Steve,
Yeah.
you know?
Okay. That's fine.
You know, you and I, Stephanie, we had this
Yeah.
side conversation. One of the things that a couple things we can look at longer term, where some districts are going, like the turf field could have been major athletic equipment, including bleachers and scoreboards, where you raise, you project out the needs in that area of our operations. And also, Amy, Dan, and Mike and I have talked about, some districts are taking the user fee. Instead of putting it in general revenue, putting it into going right to that account. And so if we have, I think it's $100 a season, right? No, more, I forget, I apologize, but we, through a warrant, the town can authorize monies raised through user fees to be designated into a fund for athletics. Athletic user fee goes to athletics. And save it that way. There's some school districts that are targeting funds and putting it into reserves to plan. Because we know that the athletics, I have a desire to take, Dana does, Mike does, Amy does, look at the bleachers. We don't have handicap accessible bleachers at the field. I don't believe that's our standard. I've been in a lot of high school bleachers, and there's a way to be respectful so people can actually be in a wheelchair and sit right next to families as we watch games. And that's not an insignificant purchase. But planning and saving regularly for those purchases, and I'm not talking about balls.
Right.
I'm talking about scoreboards, bleachers, turf,
The big stuff,
other things.
So,
big capital items.
and
Better said.
and it's worth, exploring different ways to fund those type of projects, because, the campus is over 30 years old, and some of the equipment on the campus is that old, and it's going to need repairing. Outside, I'm not sure if we're aware, there are 4 scoreboards on this campus outside. There's one over by the softball field, there's one up front in the front fields, and there's a baseball scoreboard, and there's the football scoreboard, and I would say 4 for 4 are not working accordingly. And so, they cost in different ranges,
Yeah.
and it's usually the last thing put into a budget by a principal and athletic director. It's usually one of the first things removed, with school furniture. And so I think, to Steve's point about planning more innovatively and in a more modern manner, as we build budgets and we use user fees and we use, different opportunities, I think it's something that we have to explore. And otherwise, we're gonna be, in conversations about how we fund stuff, and as it come out of the budget or is in the budget. Is it at unassigned fund balance? Is it transferred when something doesn't get spent, right? It is definitely, worth a conversation, but, I know this. It doesn't work.
Mhm.
And we need to, I think the kids deserve it, and I think the families deserve it. And I can tell you, the games I attended this fall, I spent most of the quarters standing next to people complaining about the scoreboard. And those are the people coming in here that have children who are gonna be here, who aren't watching the game, but they are watching the game, and they're playing their kids up, middle schoolers and elementary kids playing off to the side. And so it's just, we're in an awkward spot. I get it. So I appreciate the call to vote. So
I just wanted to say one thing in response. I think, my read on community is an expectation that we maintain what we have at a minimum. So spending some money to replace things like this that are part of our educational mission is, I'm happy to support that. My plea to you, moving forward, is it frustrates me that I never heard that the scoreboard issue before receiving the agenda packet as a sitting school board member for some time now. So this is, again, an example of where it'd be nice to share the information. These are the needs. How can we do this? You've known about this for a couple of years.
it would have been nice to have been having that conversation now and be part of the solution. And I don't mean to,
It did come up at a
I don't
previous
remember
meeting.
this ever.
It might have been one when you were at home. I don't,
I think we've mentioned it before, I can't.
well, that's an unfair critique, and I don't mean to say it in a way
No,
that you
I
feel
get
bad.
it.
I need to use it just to say, this is a perfect example of just, we can help you. We can help us all help ourselves to making this place stay awesome. And, I look forward to doing what we could do moving forward to get that done.
And please know this vote is appreciated and it is helpful, and it will bring some excitement to some area of our operations. So thank you. This vote is very helpful.
I feel compelled to say that I really do want to support your efforts 100%, because you're said it before in different forums, but your success is our success. So looking forward to that.
All right, I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the $40,000 transfer for the scoreboard,
Say up to.
up to 40,000, because it's a set form, so up to
So moved.
40,000. Motion made by Mr. Glover.
I thought I already moved
yeah, she
it.
made
And
it.
it already got seconded.
This motion.
Been on the table. We've
We're
Oh, yeah.
discussing it.
I thought we were just discussing it. I don't,
Anna made the
That's right. I said further
Yeah.
discussion.
yeah, so Sonny's.
But the motion, the discussion is based on the motion.
Yes,
So,
It was
yeah.
moved and seconded.
it was.
Well, it's really moved to seconded now.
Yeah.
Now we just need to vote on it.
But anyway,
But there was.
all right, so we're gonna call the vote. All right, Sonny. Are you,
I think I said it's proposed.
Sonny, are you in favor of the motion on the floor?
Daniels, yes.
Glover, yes.
Yeah, yes.
Peters, yes.
Friend, yes.
O'Keefe, no.
Lily Zimmerman, yes.
Okay, that motion will pass. And we will move on to the unassigned fund balance discussion. Amy, do you want to discuss the projects that are in here or anything, or not in, but they're in for somewhere there.
It should be,
Yep.
they're in Trello. I think
184.
they got sent- Yeah,
So
so
page 184 of the
do
packet.
you want to discuss the possible money first or the projects first?
Whichever, just go for it.
Okay. So yeah, so we're still early in the world of projections, but in our, we're typically very conservative and not looking to overly project fund balance at this point, but it does look like we do have funds to cover the warrant articles that were passed, as well as meet the estimated unassigned fund balance to be used to offset the tax rate for next year with a very small balance of about $14,000. So, which isn't anything usable for projects, but it is early, so I think it's worthy to take a look at the projects just to give you an introduction of what we're potentially looking to propose. But just in terms of fund balance, we have about a little over 200,000 expected in revenue over what was projected. That's primarily from an increase in interest tuition. We have a custodian who from Souhegan who needed to cover in the Amherst district. So there's revenue coming in from Amherst, but then it's just going out in expenditure. So that's just an offset. But we have to show it on both sides of the ledger. In terms of expenditure savings, as typical in most years, our expenditure savings come from changes in salary and associated benefit savings. 403B that isn't fully taken advantage of by employees and health insurance elections. So you'll see that in the regular education function, special education. We also have some vacancies in special education. So those are some realized savings in athletics and activities. Savings are from health insurance elections. Same in student support services. instructional support, we had the domain leader vacancy this year. So that was a significant amount. We are projecting some professional development that will not be used by staff. As a reminder, we are obligated to budget for what we are contractually obligated to, but not all staff take advantage of those professional development opportunities. We have some savings in our Medicaid billing vendor. In admin, it's mostly savings is due to the smallish amount, staff turnover in those positions and benefit elections. And then the building and grounds, you'll see the overage, that's mostly for overtime. And as I said, that's the offset in expense that the revenue is coming in for. For student transportation, we have some savings in special education transportation. In technology, that's a small amount also, but a small amount of salary and benefit savings and the 403B. And then for food service this year, we're doing better each month. So we're just projecting a $3,200 loss for that, the transfer. So that's the money side. As I said, we're conservative. I expect the savings amounts to increase and potentially have some money for projects, but it's too early to tell at this point.
Right. So even though we have a list of projects, we're not really
Yep,
gonna get
so-
into them right now, or does it?
We don't need to.
I don't think it's
Yeah,
worth talking
provided
about.
to the board, there's some facilities, projects, some carpet replacement. There was some damage that Primex is covering a portion of that. We did talk about the cafeteria and how that potentially relates to the experience that students have in the cafeteria, and hoping that a refresh could maybe help revenue. You know, that students will want to spend more time in there and buy more snacks. The furniture replacement that we talk about a lot, as I said, pending the highlight cost. I will note, we did put in a grant to use our last remaining ESSER funds. We put in, it's about $20,000 for furniture replacement. So we're waiting to find out if that will be approved. So that would be great. That will relieve some of the pressure on the furniture. If you have specific questions on that, Dana and Steve put that grant together. For technology, I don't have a cost on this yet, or an estimate, but we're looking for the auditorium sound system upgrade. And then nothing for food service now, and then the van that is ordered but maybe canceled. So we don't have these prioritized yet, but as typical, as we get closer to the end of the year, we'll put them in an order that administration believes is a priority, and then certainly up to the board to make those decisions.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any questions on that one before we move on? We'll keep updating that every month,
Yep,
so.
yep, I'll be back next month with
I
actually.
have a question
Yeah.
about the auditorium sound system. Currently, it's a soundboard down in the mid-level. There's a whole sound booth up at the high level. Is this to refresh the sound booth and make that a good, proper engineering space for sound, lighting, and all of what presumably go on in the booth projections?
Yeah, so we explored moving the sound booth into the lighting booth. And then when we had people come out, they told us that actually wasn't the best place to control the sound from, just because of the acoustics and needing to remove all the glass and like reframe everything. Yeah. So one of the things that we are looking at is more like digital boards that you can move around more easily, that also come with like a way to remote control from your phone or from an iPad, so that you can do sound tests and checks from other locations. It does seem that keeping the board back in that corner right now for the upgrade is gonna be probably the best way to go. But, I guess that whole space was custom built, that whole like covering of it was custom built as like a senior project back in the day, and really it was custom built to fit the equipment that's in there, so when we do refresh the equipment, we might need to look at redoing that area. Yeah, that's where we're at.
I've been to events where people walk around with
Yes.
iPads
No.
and they can adjust the sound for that
Each and
section that they're in.
Right.
Just individual speakers, they can test the decibel levels and hear the acoustics. Very, very cool. And just to say, I went to Beauty and the Beast. Some of the audio seemed a little quiet. I didn't know if it was just not projecting or if there was some problem with the.
Yeah, so it's some of our microphones, so part of the other thing that we want to talk about is getting more wireless mics and more headsets. Because we only have like 3 functioning ones right now, so that would be included in some of this work as well.
Yeah, it's been an issue for years.
Yeah. Do you envision maybe, it sounds like being awesome to do everything all at once. Is this something that we could envision to adding to the technology fund that we've established this year, for the first time? Thoughts?
Yeah.
It's in technology here. It supports obviously theater, but there's a lot of public events and a lot of things happen in the theater.
Yes.
Look, yeah. We
That
can
is definitely something that we've talked about,
Professional development.
because we do a lot in that in that auditorium outside of Souhegan High School specific events, so that we talked about as well.
Yeah, great. Again, it's a great asset that we have. We should really,
I'm sure it sounds.
Keep it tip top.
yeah.
I would say that's more of a priority for, for this administration and some things you see on that list. So we can, as we get into it, we can talk more about it.
So I'm gonna share my thoughts on this year and why it's a little bit different. We went to the taxpayers this year and we came up with a big laundry list of warrant articles to pull out of our unassigned fund balance and assign it for future use. We had buy-in, we vetted it through the budget process. I think this year, if we're gonna be presenting any projects here, it has to be urgent and 100% necessary. Because my community, where Sonny and I have to go back to them and argue and articulate why we're spending money instead of sending it back to the taxpayer, we just passed a $2 million library this year, where we don't know what the tax impacts will be. We just passed a town increase to our highway department of $300,000 for additional paving. That may not seem like a lot to the town of Amherst, but Anna said it to me right after our deliberative session. Our tax rate is huge. Yeah, it is very large. And so these types of things actually matter. And we can't go back to our community. We did not pass the Souhegan budget this year. Mount Vernon did not pass the Souhegan budget this year. And we can't go to them next year if they say, hey, you gave very little back and you know that we're in a pain point because of this new capital project that we just approved, which took decades to get through, and we finally got it. I think this year is the year that we sit back and say, you know what, Mount Vernon, we're gonna give you as much as we possibly can, but these are the projects we just can't pass on. We just can't do that. And so I'm gonna look at this list from that lens, and I'm assuming Sunny probably will as well, because I can't go ahead and justify to the community, the cafeteria painting, right? I can't go back and say, hey, $20,000 could have gone to something a little bit more attractive. The van, I still think it's absolutely necessary and warranted. And I know this conversation is probably too premature, but I'm sharing this with the rest of our board members because that's the lens we're gonna looking at.
Appreciate that. Yeah, that's part of our community as well, so it's absolutely important to hear that.
If there is more information on cafeteria painting, like if there's big water damage or something.
Yeah, of course, right? And fix it.
So you're a definite no on the jump.
Okay. Thank you for that information. We'll have more discussion on that next month as we get close to the end of the year, see where we are. Thank you. Personnel discussion, did you want to have that now? Because I know part of this will go into.
No, I think, as you kind of reviewed the agenda and board notes, you're gonna see, 3 topics. We have a nomination of position. we want to talk a little bit about, between board meeting and summer hiring. With the board and a resignation. And then we'll come back out and talk a little bit about those things.
Okay.
After we have our non-public.
The summer hiring can be public.
Yeah, but can we do it later? Or do we do it?
It's up to you. We just won't have typically we don't pop back on the Zoom after.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you want
so-
to discuss this?
Yeah, we can, so for me, as you look into the memo, we take a look at the opportunity to bring people on board in the summer and take a look at offering them a contract without having a board meeting. And there's a process that's been used here in the past. That gives the superintendent the opportunity to offer a contract if there are no concerns. And that's a contingent contract, as we use in the summer to hire when we're not in session. And boards are communicated with, provided all the information. We've experienced it with a recent SAU nomination, so this would be a similar process that we would use in the summer. But there's also, if it's appropriate, given the market, and this is a change of practice, given the market of hiring in public education right now, the example I'll give you, we went around with the director of curriculum position, and it was a competitive pool, with competitive applicants, and we wanted to bring that, person into our organization, but we didn't have an SAU meeting until April 30th. We thought if we waited that long, we might have a chance of losing quality candidates. This allows board to have access to all the information and be able to have conversations, with the board chair, and then if needed, with the superintendent. If there's real concerns, we can always call an emergency meeting if we have to, but for us to be as competitive as we want to be, this is a process that I'm asking people to consider supporting.
You would basically send it out, say, hey, this is what we want to do, any concerns? If we're all like, nope, we're fine, it just happens.
Yeah, we did it last year.
Yeah. I have no
And
objection.
I fielded questions, very appropriate questions about the candidates, if they had questions about the background. And then if there were some significant concerns, you can hold it. But for example, we have, Dan is in the process of a couple of science. We have, and right now it's great because we have another meeting in 2 weeks. But if we go from May 2nd to June, that month, you can't do it because people are gonna have multiple offers. And we want to secure them. We actually have someone who we'd like to move forward pretty quick because they would like to have an offer from us before they sign their current contract. And this is the most, I said it last year, I hate to be redundant, but it's a very, very competitive environment, multiple offers for candidates. We have a lot to offer here, but securing them on a contract is the most we can do for the kids and for the process. So if we can follow that process, I know Danny would appreciate it.
I fully support it. I think it makes sense. It's intuitive. I mean, this is the way you should be running this organization. And then it's giving us the opportunity to provide feedback and if it's something that's objectionable or someone has something to really say, we can always call a meeting. So it just makes sense. It's very
Yes.
intuitive.
Any other questions or concerns around that? Otherwise, we'll go forward with that format. Yes? Yes, I think that's a go forward with that
Thank
format.
It'll make a difference.
Appreciate it.
Yep,
And we'll come back to the other two and non-public.
yep. The school calendar, last day of school for,
Yes, the board notes need to be corrected because since we've created the board notes and had to move a meeting, we had a snow day. So, the correction, the last day for students in Souhegan High School, is June 19th. So we just wanted to update you on that and, we want to kind of get that information out to our students and our families. But wanted to communicate that here with you guys tonight. And then the other small update, I can turn it over to Steve as he's been kind of working with the calendar with the 3 boards. You can see in the board notes, there's just a correction we need to do with an election that happens on September 11th. So Steve, you want to talk that?
Yeah,
through a little
very
bit?
quickly, it's our last piece of the journey. We had a scheduled early release for the 11th. But because of the election, which is the primary on the 10th, we'd like to move the early release. All the other districts have moved the early release. Typically, and Dan is absolutely right, typically we prefer at all possible not to have school during this day, but we're thinking that we just opened the first day of school on 3, it's not perfect to have a day off, and we're gonna have the early release anyway, so we got about a 4-hour window where it'll be complicated. Beyond that, we'll have a pretty good voting situation. So we just like support of the board to move to the early release to the 10th, and then we will get this out to the community, take draft everything off it. And this will align with the other districts. It's a little thing, but we wanted to bring it here to get
We're gonna need a motion, yes.
as presented.
Just move to move the early release day as stated by superintendent.
And the calendar, the 24,
As
25
presented.
calendar as presented.
That's the one that's presented on page
The very last page of it.
186.
Do we need to approve the calendar for next year, or do you want them to do
That's-
separate motions?
No, oh, it's 186 and 187.
186 is this year.
Yeah, one
That's
is,
the last day of school one.
do you need us to
Right.
approve the last day of school? Or you just need us to
No, we
approve the
want-
24, 25
No,
calendar?
we're just letting you know
Yeah.
about the
Yeah.
last day of school.
It's just the
But we-
24, 25
But
calendar.
I was reminded by Chelsea, and I was a little surprised that we do need to approve
Calendar.
the calendar for 24, 25.
Yes, we do.
So we need a
Yeah.
motion for that.
Sorry about
Any
that.
questions about the 24-25 calendar?
Let's have a motion to approve in a second and then have discussion. So motion to approve the 24, 25 calendar made by Mr. Bayou,
Sure.
seconded by
So moved.
Mr. O'Keefe. Thank you. Okay, discussion.
I've talked before about how I personally like having the last day of school with the 5 built-in snow days. So it just shows projected last day being the 20th. And I think about this because I'm on the Facebook page, and like the day we just had that was out, it was interesting. There were different discussions going on the different pages. One was, we had the bad weather day on Thursday, and then there was school on Friday. One was, good God, why are we having school? This is the most horrible thing ever. I'm not sending my kid. There should have been a school day off. And then the other one is people going, oh my God, with the snow day yesterday, are we gonna have to make these days up? We're up to like the 18th. This is terribly late. And I really do think if we just said the last day was gonna be June 20th, 2025, this anticipates 5 snow days that are built in. And then if for some reason we end up with a year where we don't have 5 snow days, it ends up earlier, people would be thrilled. But, so that's one thought. But 2, is there a reason graduation, and I understand people would hate this, but only because everybody wants the school year to be shorter, not in this room. Is there any reason graduation couldn't be the 20th? Because it does seem like once graduations happen, is anything effective really happening in that last week after graduations happen, after all the seniors are gone?
That's when our most productive.
Really?
Yeah, I'm only mostly kidding, but yeah, truly, yes, right? So we still have our entire finals week this year is happening after seniors are gone.
Right, so why couldn't graduation be on the 20th?
So school would be, so if we didn't have any snow days, we'd have a week off between the last day of school and graduation.
Yep.
That would be about as innovative as I've ever seen.
Are people not gonna show up?
A lot of the senior events and practice and stuff like that.
Yeah, you won't
Probably
have the
should
kids on
probably get
campus.
Fascinating. I'll have to really think about.
Kids could.
So the statute says the graduation has to be within 5 days of the last day of school. And
Have we ever had a year where there were no snow days?
It's coming.
Like, is it don't even, but even then you still get the wind and you get.
one, I think the last 10 years, it was a one, it was a one day, but we're
You get the flooding here. If we don't have snow days, we get flooding and then.
we're 3 or 4 now. I agree with you. We're 3 or 4. We're gonna have 3 or 4 based on, so that would be 18, 19. The tradition was in the old days, seniors were given an extra week off early to start jobs, start making. and give them a little head start, but the college kids took all those jobs. We can look at it in the future.
But I always viewed it as it's an opportunity for the faculty to prepare for the eighth grade step-up day and preparation of
That's all part-
end of year stuff. Is that not?
No, that's happening.
That is?
Yeah. I never really thought about that.
I mean, I guess-
Five days removed.
I guess if the idea is that the last day is the 13th, I appreciate the graduation is at the 6th.
Because it was second last year.
Yeah,
This year we moved it,
Really early.
Dana and I and Mike moved it all the way to 14. And we got just a little inquire, we got a little.
I know, I saw that too, yeah, they were like, oh my gosh.
Wasn't that fast?
Graduation, that's Fourth of July weekend.
Loss, honestly, because I mean, I don't understand. I do not understand the contingent that seems to be one of the fewest days my kid has to be in school.
You and me.
I
Because
mean,
people are
I
looking
don't
at
get that,
their
because that's
vacation.
where your kids are learning, that's where you want your kids to excel, you want your kids to get the full experience, you want your kids to get all the opportunities. But, there, we'll see these discussions that are
I was
just.
like, when can I start booking my vacation?
Right, why can't we
What days?
why can't we start the school year later, end the school year earlier, and heaven forbid we, I don't know.
But is it too late to do that now, though? Because we kind of need to get a calendar approved and then
Right.
have the discussion for 25, 26.
26,
Because I
Yeah.
think that's gonna involve
Yes.
CPC and the stakeholders, like, what is that being used for?
right.
Like, I don't
I
think it's
agree
just
with
a
you.
regular board.
And this is we approved in concept before Christmas.
Yeah.
And then we approved after PPC, and then we changed it because of the primary. So this is our third bite at the apple.
Okay.
So we'd like to approve this one and take this under advisement in the future.
And Anna, to your point, I made a note of it. I think, time and calendar and days and hours is a worthy conversation as we develop to 25, 26.
And we,
And I'm with you, and I started to really think about it when graduation was June 2nd, and no one said a word. The seniors were really kind of done the week before Memorial Day.
Right.
And I can tell you this, that was the same time my counterparts in Georgia, who I'm close with and used to work with, that was their last day of school and graduation, but they started August 7th. And so I do think it came a real red flag and something to think about. And so you've heard that all this year. I think anyone who's had a conversation with us has heard that. And we're gonna continue to look at it, what's appropriate for SAU 39, Souhegan School District, Amherst, and Mount Vernon.
Yes.
And it's gonna look a little bit different, and we're gonna have some varying calendars as we kind of get to that point in 3 districts. We're gonna do our best to align them, and so this will help. So I appreciate the.
And the reason why, Anna, just to add into that, I mean, Labor Day in 2026 is gonna be on.
It's late in September.
On a Monday, 7th. So if we're gonna go back and you can't start school on the 8th, it's we're looking at the
Right, you're
2nd,
gonna
3rd,
start.
4th. And then that would be a really good segue to say, what do we envision the last? fiscal
Yeah.
year?
And my only other thing, is there a way when we say snow makeup days, that at least we make a note, like every snow day is made up, at least in Souhegan? So
we should
that,
be better at that.
so that it's not like this, are they gonna make us make them up? No, it has to be. made.
We have to, and so he can
And
have.
it's conceivable that you will see other boards joining the makeup snow day.
Yeah. But I'm just thinking, note it right on here, like, not only is it a makeup day, it's not available for them, it is a makeup day.
What?
I love it. What we just did.
Okay,
I have a couple
All right.
of comments to share. The language for 13 to 20 is snow makeup days, but really it's approximate snow makeup days, because this year it's not 5, it's 6.
5 here,
I thought
5.
only have 5 snow days.
Mount Vernon had 6.
so the typo in the notes is not going from 5 to 6, it's going from June 18 to June 19.
Yeah, because it was 4, because we actually wrote these before Thursday, the last
Okay.
meeting, we had a snow day after we wrote.
So you're picking up on the,
Okay, you said there was one, I don't know,
It was
said it was
4, it went to
19, so I
5.
assumed that meant 5 went to 6. But
Four
it
to
did
5.
not, 4 went to 5.
Yes, sir.
Mount Vernon went to 6,
Yes, sir.
so. So I guess to kind of Dan's
They
point,
had a
like
toilet.
there's an inherent uncertainty, the point is there's inherent uncertainty in the date. So the way it looks now is come hell or high water, the 20th is the last day of school. But that actually may not be true. Depending on,
Well, you could have a 6 or 7 snow day is what you're saying.
right,
The state requires 5 days to be put in for Clement days with notice on the calendar. And we have to submit the calendar to the state.
Okay. So we have
So,
to,
but to
we need to
your
acknowledge
point,
it.
if something happened, we would potentially have to change.
we
the
would at
calendar.
least have a conversation. about it.
Conversation.
And that's why we're starting this practice here of having the last day of school come to the board in the 7th.
Yeah, I guess my only suggestion there was approximate something, or an asterisk with a tiny little thing that says. Final day to be determined based on actual conditions experienced throughout the year.
They're made up, final day.
That's a general rule, all days are made
Look
up,
on
yes.
some days before we're done.
37 years in public ed, Dan, and we're talking about snow days. How do you feel about that?
Not great, Steve.
Yeah, well, yeah, I love the language. We'll fix it.
Okay,
And then just to plant this was a seed, not to go into it, but since we're gonna have this conversation in the future, as we look at, when I look at days to recover. I'm looking at these paled out days where there's no school, right? We have, for example, 3 days for Thanksgiving, whereas the rest of the working world gets 2 days. So maybe there's a day there.
Wednesday, you're trying to say don't take Wednesday?
I'm just saying the rest of the working world doesn't get Wednesday off. People take it as PTO, maybe.
I give my staff half day on.
Well, see, you're so generous, but see, it's only half a day, even for her staff.
But
My
Yeah.
point is, this is a conversation, we're gonna have to find
Yeah.
4 more days, 3 more days coming in the future, and I don't know where they come from, unless you go into August or you go later into June, unless you start peeling away some of these, quite generous, time off in the middle of the school year.
We have no school in November, we start adding days back in, you have to change it.
so,
That's all I want, just a seed to plant. in the
Okay.
future.
And I agree with you, and it just, in my experience, there's certain things that families have appreciated that we've evolved, because when I was a kid, we didn't have third, but now with, frankly, we made some decisions based on divorced families and having days and time to accommodate, because that's a little bit different world than it was when I was little.
Well, and I'm not harping on that, that's my one and only
But yeah,
day.
but
I
it's just
see.
as long as we can
One
consider the impact
example
on families.
of where we might look in our calendar to find the days we need. Either to guard against all these extra snow days or to meet our obligations under our new labor agreement or whatever.
Yeah, no, I think there's lots of reasons to talk a little bit what you can do with the calendar, so,
Okay.
appreciate the conversation.
Let's go put it on Wednesday, but
Okay, so we have a motion to approve the 24-25 calendar as presented. We have the motion, we already have the motion, we already have the second, this is a discussion, so I'm gonna call the vote. So Sunny, starting with you.
Daniels, yes.
Glover, yes.
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 Grund, yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, and approves the calendar. Board goals. All right, so this is the first discussion on this. And what I'd like to do is be able to collect ideas of what people had as board goals. Because this is gonna be more than just one conversation, but I think we need to collect what they are so we have a time to think about them. And then come back in the next meeting with some, you know, like where we can actually maybe either come up with solidified ones, but I just want to get them out on the table. We don't have to go into full-hearted discussion on it because I want people time to think about it and research about it. But if we can throw everything we have on the table, I would appreciate it. That's my thoughts. So who has board goal ideas, conversations, bring up?
So I think if we're gonna have discussions about, businesses that might be contributing and whether or not we want to look to outside resources such as businesses in the community to raise funds for different projects. That's something we should be talking about and how we would want to, and whether or not we do that, how we make that happen. Because it's not like there's someone at the school who we're paying a budget for who does fundraising and business outreach. So if that's gonna be something we're gonna start looking at as a way to cover expenses, we need to have a focused
Plan.
discussion about what that plan looks like.
Cool. Other
Makes sense.
ideas?
What's our vision? For the school,
So like a long term.
philosophical, long-term,
Yeah, so I'll tag on to that, because my thought was looking at, like the plans of reviewing and understanding educational plans for all to address all student needs. Like, let's make sure that we're looking at that and what does that look like for the future? So I kind of,
Yeah, I think, I mean, more philosophically, if what's our relationship with, philosophy of coalition?
Okay.
Where are we nowadays? I think it's a big question. What's our overall philosophy of the school?
what else?
Like with the long-term financial. Should we do more with, capital reserve funds to kind of even out some of these requests over time? Support.
Capital funding versus,
And maybe, I know we do this, but maybe we could do it better, on that same goal, of, making sure we are all aware of long-term projects, like knowing the scoreboard's coming up.
so communication. Of long-term.
We've got
capital needs.
technology, we've done it with, school maintenance.
I think we got done it with a lot of things in that wheelhouse, like the furniture issues and,
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, we could just expand that work.
Yep, okay. Good one.
We need to talk about thoughts for the extra space in the annex.
Use, okay,
And as much as I do not want to revisit some of the issues we've discussed in the past, given the discussions that came up around elections, I think we need to find a way to decide what we're gonna do with that space and make sure questions have been answered, and I don't, I'm not suggesting that we necessarily do something, but I think it would be interesting to know what the cost of having someone just come in and do the proposals and bids for, I mean, there's discussion about, and I think I all said, I'm gonna be very upset. I've said very clear on this, that I don't see there's a way we can bring the 7th and 8th grade in without a building project. But there's also always this discussion about how do you know that? And I think I would like to know what the cost would be of having someone come in and tell us what that would entail. I think it's gonna be a significant cost, and I think, if I was predicting, the end result might be that we decide we don't think that cost should be spent. But I think we should maybe have that information at least available, so we need to talk about that kind of part of it.
And I think the renovation of the science labs.
Yeah.
Be a part of that conversation.
yes.
Do we renovate them there, or do we try to keep them within this building? So if something else gets done with that building, we're not cutting ourselves off from a set of labs, expensive important labs.
Or even if we're gonna do something like try to get the makerspace as part of it, making sure that the lab renovation isn't a part of that building that won't interfere with the plan for the makerspace on it.
Whatever use we want, that's probably,
Right, I'm just
I
using that
I
as
was
a
running it, and you're
very light
understanding,
example, but
Yeah.
it doesn't necessarily mean it's even using the whole space, it's just making sure that everything's compatible with what we are gonna do with whatever space.
I agree, there are practical reasons to do this beyond just, can we bring something to grade?
well,
No,
Right.
Kind of understanding.
also think that, having a better understanding of how the space is currently used and how current administration would like to use it should be part of that conversation.
I think
yes,
that was last time we said, yeah, bring that back to us, like, think about what you'd like to do there, and. I think as we move into next year, and I'm not talking about doing that in May, but, as we move into next year, I think that's a discussion we should be having. Because we do want to maximize the benefit we're getting from all the available space we have,
right,
and if there's something that can't be, done or offered or easily available, that we want to look at it, we should be looking at that.
One of the JPAC conversations way back in 2020 discussed possible uses for the annex that kind of helped them decide to take the annex off the table, and one of them was the suggestion of that some of the special ed some of the special ed programs could move over there and some of the rooms could be reconfigured to accommodate that. You know, there's a lot of reasons to look at this, other than looking at. Seventh, eighth grade. So
okay.
It would benefit us as a,
All right, so I have all of that into one discussion of the long-term use of our space, and I have some other notes, are that, which we can.
Yeah.
Okay,
I think too, do we want to encourage the continued, supporting the improvement of instructional practice? Okay, it's already on there.
no, that's what I was gonna put down too, is like, it's improve, like, support the work to improve the outcomes in math and reading as stated by the superintendent's.
And even generally, instruction practices across the building with specific focus in literacy and mathematics, but certainly want the world language teachers to have fun too.
Well, the ongoing work that's been done.
Exactly,
supporting the
yeah, just-
ongoing work to make
exactly,
sure
I don't know that we
yeah,
have
the
to, like,
collaboration and the oversight and the, you know, constantly striving that's
Yep.
been happening, yeah.
Any others?
I have some. We had this conversation just a little bit in December, but I'd like us to have an opportunity to have conversation as budgets are getting prepared and how we might be able to make investments in our high achieving students. I think that among other benefits of that might help reduce brain drain, we're experiencing to other institutions. People who don't feel like Souhegan has enough rigor for them, for the pathways that they want to choose, so they go to some private institutions. You know, that happens to a degree. I don't know the extent to which that happens. I still believe that we should revitalize our alumni program and make that a priority. I think there's some very simple things we could do. It wouldn't cost very much money to, for one of them is, if you're a Souhegan graduate, you get a lifetime email for SAU 39 as a way that ways to stay connected throughout the entire lifetime.
I don't know how much they cost here, but it's like $24 an account for the one I use, with there's a Google backed one per month.
Thousands of accounts.
A group or something might, the idea is good, just maybe the function of it.
But anyway, we're not gonna get into the details of how to do that, but I have.
No, I just had that conversation today because I wanted to add an email.
Yes.
Certainly in today's world, there's a way to stay connected with them for their life. That's the point. Whatever it is, I'd like to understand how we can get that done.
Let's read.
I'd like to, for us to discuss amending the Constitution, which is policy CE. And I'd like to add a conflicts clause that says something to the effect that if there's a conflict in the language of this policy, between this policy and another policy, that the language of this Constitution policy will prevail unless prohibited by law or judicial decree. And the reason why I got to thinking about that is because there's a board duties section in there, it's section 2. One of the board member duties, not board member duties, is to have conversations with everyone, staff, faculty, support people, administrators. And we have other policies that tell us that we have to follow a certain chain of command in order to have those conversations. And you have made progress talking through it with the administration. Now, Steve, you were awesome when you brought the domain leaders and the educational leadership through our board meetings. That was fantastic. I mean, that can be a part of that. And, but I'd like there to be that Constitution have real true meaning in our policy framework. And I think I've seen some conflicts between that policies and other policies, and I'd like that policy's language to govern. I'd like us to have a conversation about that.
Any others? Good.
I think when I think of the word goal, though, I think of 5 things that this board should effectively execute upon for the entire year. I think some of the stuff we're talking about are agenda items. when I think of vision for 2024, 25, 26, I think of how do we go ahead and more effectively communicate the things that are beneficial to our students, to the taxpayer, and to the community as a board, right? And so I think of the budget process as a great example in executing upon a roadshow where we're actually visiting groups. So Christie, I know you in the past have done visits with certain political organizations in town during election time. Why couldn't we do that during budget time? Why couldn't we articulate why the board is looking for community support around our budget? So I think that is something that I think could be very effective, and getting community members to actually participate in that and getting our message out a little bit better.
So like back in October is when they were building them instead of waiting till February?
Well, remember the board's budgets right after we approve it. It's still kind of the superintendent's budget, the budget committee is reviewing, we're adding feedback, and then once we adopt it, that's our budget. So that's our opportunity to go out and do the roadshow. And so we don't have a very strong parent-teacher organization here, so we have to go through other entities. Yeah, so
That could
like
change.
the Mount Vernon PTA is a phenomenal resource, right? And so the Mount Vernon Village school budget failed pretty consistently, and then we moved out, we got, you know, the 40 people that were involved with the PTA to get the message out, to then go out and share the message beyond that. So like that could be a very effective tool. And then identifying sort of like mission statements of what we as a board want us, the seven of us to do over the course of the next 7 years, right? And so I would love to see, and I know, Anna, you brought this up last year, is really revisit the solar issue, right? So why should we not be looking at alternative mechanisms of revenue to sort of subsidize what we're doing here? And that could be, you know, in terms of advertising our services, advertising programs that are here, incorporating maybe some area students in homeschool situations to use some of their state start money in the scholarships that they get, and leverage that here and get access to our photography program. So all of that out of the box stuff, I think is visionary, and I think that is more like a goal for us. The seven of us, it incorporates what we're trying to do, try to create the best possible institution or continue the best possible institution that we can in an affordable price. So when I think of goals, that's the stuff that I think of, like, hey, how do we go ahead and think out of the box and create opportunities?
Yeah, I mean, are we looking at things that we can accomplish in the next year, or are we looking at more
1 year.
aspirational things that would be better than strategic plan or
I
master
mean,
plan?
Technically, it's 1 year. There may be things that we deem important that end up getting carried over, but, yeah, typically your goal is something you can measure that you are accomplishing in the year. Your vision is that longer term goal, your plan and goal, you know, detailed goals are the steps to get there.
And so as an example, Dan, one of our goals could be is we're gonna empower this board over the course of the next year to look for alternative sources of revenue that can better our student situation. The goal could literally be that broad, and we can interpret that as we see fit.
I like broad goals.
And
I
then
like
bring in
long-term is my,
agenda items throughout the year that coincide with our 5 or 6 goals
Yes.
throughout the year.
So I have 11 things on here right now in some form, that I will type up and get out to everybody so we can think through and maybe condense it down to what we feel we can achieve, maybe 3 or 4. So next month we'll talk more about it and get through.
I had,
Some
I had,
thoughtful.
yeah, that sounds good. I think we had one more. I
One
checked
more?
it off as if I said it, but I
Okay.
just blew it right. All right, that's it. But I would like us to seriously consider, honestly consider enabling candidate statements in our voter guides, because they're district guides. They're not school board guides. We are one part of a district. And there's various pieces and elements of the district that speak in those voter guides to inform the voters. And the candidates are real people who have to sign their name and test who they are. Their names are in the voter guides, and there's historically an undervote because people, it's very difficult to find any information about candidates. So as a community service and a civic investment, I think I would encourage us to actually enable it, but please have an honest and serious conversation about that. And of course, I would say if we could persuade all of our governing bodies to do the same, that would be wonderful. But if nobody else wanted to join, then I would say we could lead by example on that.
So I would say that I think that falls under communication. back to kind of Steve's point about goals versus items, I think likewise, my original one of, you know, if we're gonna do something with outreach, that potentially falls under also Steve's bigger umbrella of looking for alternative sources of revenue. So I would just say when you're coordinating, when you're typing it up, I think you should feel empowered to combine things. You know, you can maybe put subnotes just so we don't forget.
Yeah, I'm
agenda
gonna do like
items
a
that we wanna
broad,
make
yeah.
sure are included
Yeah.
and things like that, but, you know, I think some of that stuff can be combined for the goal purposes.
And I guess,
Okay.
that open to add to send you, so if we walk out of here and be like, oh, that's right, the
Absolutely.
one thing,
Yeah.
we can still
Yeah.
send information and
Yep.
collate the
Absolutely.
list and build
Absolutely.
it over. Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay. Thank you for that. I appreciate, you know, people's thoughts and input on that. So the last thing before we do any public input and go non-public is receive updates from Superintendent Barry.
Yeah, just wanted to reference the general update in board notes. Looked into a couple things per request, you know, vandalism. For some start time stuff, we're gearing up for that conversation. People have been very good about saying what they've wanted. I've looked into the self-service. There is pockets of the campus that have stronger cell phone since we've added the repeaters. Got confirmation from various people. Update a little bit about right to know requests. And we're going to, you know, continue to think about how we want to be really public with our right to know requests, as it was meaningful time to gather that information. We think possibly other people should have the opportunity to see those. And about it. So I'll take any questions if there's anything, the highlights of it, so.
I go, just to support what you just said about, it's a really great idea to publish the right to know requests so that you don't have to fulfill them again in the future,
Yeah,
right?
that's part of it.
Yeah, and I would say, and maybe along the same lines, like if there's presentations that are given here that aren't in the agenda packet or otherwise attached to the minutes, or even if they are, they're buried, maybe those, not maybe, I really urge you to post those with our agenda minutes and meetings so that people can actually see the data instead of trying to squint at their screen while the meeting is live and a recording. So that would be things like the teacher presentations that we had once a month when you were the interim student, Steve, or sometimes you come in, well, somebody from the comes in with a presentation. Dan gave one on September 11th. That's finally on there. Appreciate that. And just whatever happens. Sometimes we see it for the first time here. And that would be great if that could be added in the same spirit of the right to know request.
One thing today, we sat down with, Bill Stoughton as a selectman and Dean Schenkel and talked about the impact fees and the potential being able to use them. And we asked for clarification on what recoupment means, because that's the key term. That's whether if we want to try and use the impact fees for the science lab A&E, is that considered recoupment? Because we built the annex years ago because there was an influx of students. What's that definition? Does it apply now? So we're gonna get more information from the town's council on that, so I don't have any more information other than that right now. But they're gonna go, because they have some of the same questions going on at the town. So we will get clarification soon. And just one other thing is I did send an email about the teacher appreciation breakfast that I'll follow up with everybody on to see. I only heard from a couple of people on that, so I'll just do a follow-up email on that, so we see who's able to come and actually provide them. And that's always a fun time. All right, anything else for Mr. Berry? Any questions?
Is the repeater project 100% complete? Or are there still more repeaters to come in?
It's done.
And the only thing we haven't done yet is measure.
Turn them up to 11?
No, we turned it, so, we haven't measured in nooks and crannies everywhere, because we just got the measurement, and we do have, the company gave us some before and after. So he hasn't done the after, but like my little room, 103, it's legit cell service now.
I got nothing. It's right here. That's fortunate.
I'm rolling right now. I've got legit cell.
You've got three?
I'm full bars on the cellular service and 3 on the data.
I got two,
I got
good
two.
enough, and more than I usually have.
Is there an open window?
All right. So
It's been nothing but bad luck anyway.
if there's nothing else, and we don't have anybody here from the public in the room, is there anybody online?
There, we have someone online, but there's no hand up at this moment. We give them a few seconds. You blank?
All
By the
right.
way, this
Yeah.
phase one skylights thing is a real bear, huh?
Mhm.
It's an interesting school design.
We
Yeah.
talked last time about the fact that it looks like we could, I mean, you can request from like the state fire marshal a waiver,
We tried.
Yeah, we
and
can.
they said no.
They said
The
no.
local fire department, yeah, it's a negative Ghost Rider.
Yeah, that was in the,
Is it a local fire department choice
A
though?
quote,
yes,
right?
yes,
Quoted
it
in
is,
here?
because it's a fire
Just
suppression
recite the
system.
Yeah, I gave you a quote.
Ties in the school, it is.
Yeah,
fire
quote.
chiefs.
I can explain it all to you if you'd like.
Yes,
Very boring.
it is.
Yeah, but we actually have a quote there.
Yeah, because they have to give us approval for the school to continue to operate, if I understand correctly. So, yeah, they could shut it down if we don't work with them.
Okay.
All
We
right.
make our own. We got a cool tool shop over there. We got skilled people in town.
I need to know it works.
I have a
Um,
Motion to go to non-public.
Thank you. So there's no one with their hand
Correct.
raised, right?
No hand raised,
Okay,
that's
so
correct.
I will take a motion to go into non-public at RSA 91A 32A and B, right? And
So
B.
it's C,
See.
reputation.
A and C or A, B, and C?
Roman 2. C.
I will
That's
second
A,
Stephen's motion.
so B, definitely. C,
Oh, reputation.
It's all-
C, it's all under C,
Yeah.
it's all under just C.
Yeah.
So 91A32C,
Just C.
just
Not
C,
even A. Okay,
just C.
perfect.
So roll call vote, and Sunny is online. Is she able to stay online, or do we need to call her in?
No, well, we can do it. I'm just going to throw some, I can throw some people out.
Okay, so let's do the roll call vote first to go into non-public. Sunny?
Daniels, yes.
Glover, yes.
Yes.
Peter, yes.
Friend, yes.
C,
Julie Zimmerman, yes.
All right,
just as C.
let's,
We're in non-public at 8:37.
yes, Sunny, hold tight for a few.
Hey, Bob,